The main character of this story is called Yang Murong, a young girl who considers herself the terribly sweet and handsome director of the Mujin Company. However, even in her wildest fantasies, the girl could not imagine that because of the ancient god Apmul, she would be transported to another world, into someone else's body of a young girl. A strong whirlwind will carry her there on its wings. God Ampelus is the god of the vine in ancient Greek mythology. A young girl with long hair looked in surprise with her big blue eyes at the alien world around her. Black crows croaked loudly in the gloomy sky, foreshadowing trouble. The girl did not understand where she was. In the new world, she has a seriously ill mother, whom she needed to care for every day. As for her specifically, the girl's body was useless in that world. It was for these reasons that the girl and her seriously ill mother were forced to live in a dilapidated house. But these were not the biggest problems that interfered with the girl's quiet life. She was also forced to endure attacks from the treasure of her family, her cousin. The girl's cousin mocked her when she came to get medicine for her mother. When the sister was in a good mood, in her opinion, she forced the girl to kneel down and take 30 lashes. The world of the young heroine of the story was cruel, but now that young Murong is in her body, all the people who oppressed her will receive tenfold from her. She was never going to give up. A miracle happened, and the strength that had previously been sleeping peacefully within her awakened in the girl. The source of this power was Ampel's vine bracelet that wrapped around her left arm. Now, thanks to an unknown force, the girl will not be so useless. After all, the level of power in this world decided the place of everyone, opening or closing the doors of opportunity. The girl's newly acquired bracelet is capable of absorbing the energy of heaven and earth. In addition, he could cleanse the girl's mother's body of the poison that quickly spread throughout her body. The girl was frightened when, thanks to her new strength, she absorbed a huge amount of poison from her mother's body. She thought that now she too was poisoned. But she had nothing to worry about. Much to her happiness, there is a lake whose water can cleanse any poison. But the girl was still bothered by the question of what kind of world it was in which she now lives. Swimming in the warm water of the lake, she noticed that nearby was the icy figure of a man. She wondered how normal it was that in the spring, in such heat, there was a figure made of ice. The man was truly handsome. Suddenly, the girl screamed in surprise, looking closely at the figure. There was clearly something wrong with the ice figure. But this narrative requires more detailed details, and it is worth starting from the very beginning about the history of this incredible soul and its new body. The modern city of our world, which was filled with a large number of high-rise buildings, where people scurried around like ants. The Mujin Company building was occupied by crowds of reporters at the entrance. The news was sensational. The director of the company spent $5 billion on the purchase of grapevines. All that could be heard in the crowd was various exclamations. Miss Yang was the youngest CEO on the Forbes list. The figure of the CEO, Miss Yang, has always attracted a lot of attention. She was not only a very beautiful young girl, but also a successful director. Her blue eyes shone with intelligence and mischief, and her pink hair attracted her with beauty. As soon as the girl left the company building, reporters immediately surrounded her from all sides. Everyone asked her to look into the camera for a beautiful photo. The main question then was the reason. Why the girl spent so much money on the vine. Miss Yang's assistant blocked the way for the reporters who were creeping closer and asked them to speak in turns. After all this fuss and noise was an obstacle to a successful interview. A young female journalist pushed forward and, holding the microphone closer, noticed that Miss Murong was apparently the youngest executive director in the country. It was rumored that she was only 22 years old. Miss Yang gently replied that she would answer private questions only in private, and she asked the embarrassed journalist to ask another question that would be more appropriate. The young journalist, stammering, looked away in embarrassment but quickly chattered away. She was interested in why Mrs. Murong spent $5 billion on grapevines. This was the question the young girl needed. With an imperious gesture of her hand, she ordered her assistant to show the box that he was holding in his hands. Opening it slightly, the man showed living shoots of the vine inside. Miss Yang explained that it was an unusual vine, which quite surprised all the journalists present. According to the archaeological report of one expedition, this particular vine originated in the ancient world. People say that the vine that was in the box became the first plant since the creation of the world by the gods. It is for this reason that the vine radiates mystical energy. The girl asked those present to look at the vine again. She announced that the vine appeared several million years ago, but has not yet withered and has green living branches. Immediately, the cameras clicked and the lights flashed from the flashes. The young girl believed that if their company carefully studied the vine, she was confident that they would be able to extract a huge amount of precious medicinal components. Therefore, Miss Morong believed that $5 billion was not such a high price for such a historically valuable exhibit, which could become useful in the future. The reporters stared at the girl and took pictures without stopping. Some stared with an expression of horror on their faces, others with open surprise, and others with puppy-like delight. The following events took place in Lady Morong's mansion in the dead of night. The girl was sitting on a chair in front of the table on which there was a vine and crying. She has been studying it for 2 months now, but so far she has not been able to find anything. She, hysterical and deeply tired, began to scream that she had run out of all kinds of ideas. Anger took precedence over the girl's other emotions. She slammed her hand down hard on the vine. The delicate skin of the palm was easily pierced by the sharp thorns of the vine. Blood from a small wound dripped onto the plant. The girl began to cry from the pain that pierced her arm. Suddenly, her pain didn't matter anymore. Magic began to happen before her eyes. Streams of blue power rose from the green vine. The girl stared at this in shock. The green vine became a richer emerald color and seemed to come to life. Streams of power wrapped around it and began to lift the plant up. The air around began to sparkle. A red butterfly appeared out of nowhere. The shock on the girl's face gave way to deep fear. Her blue eyes filled with tears. Pink hair rose in the air from the whirlwind that arose in her room. She tried to shield herself from the vine that was flying closer to her. It was already difficult to count the red butterflies. The wooden door to the girl's room opened with a creak. A prim butler in a blue classic suit and tie appeared at the threshold of the room. The man on the tray brought a magnificently beautiful cake, because his mistress had time for the night dessert. But the middle-aged man had to see only an empty room, in which his young mistress was definitely not there. Only the cool night wind walked around the room and fluttered the curtains. One lonely red butterfly flew out the window. The black bird cut the air with its powerful wings. One of her feathers fell out and slowly began to float downwards. Below, rock crevices awaited him, and between them a deep river of fiery lava. A young girl lay unconscious on an island of stone in the middle of the river. Her light robe was ruined and torn in places. Light abrasions were visible on exposed areas of the skin. The heat from the lava forced the girl's blue eyes to open. The girl, waking up, rose from the stone and sitting on her knees began to examine the surrounding area. She didn't understand where she was and why she felt so bad. She saw a large setting sun, which was still visible a little from behind the rock. Dry trees that rose here and there. One tree grew right at the bottom of the cliff, not far from the lava, and an unconscious man was hanging on it, in whose hands the iron of a sword glittered. The girl was sitting on a modest piece of stone island, on which there was very little space. Lava bubbled around this island. The girl did not understand how she ended up there. After some time, the events of the past became memories flashing through her head. Young Morong looked at her hand and didn't understand why her hands had become so small. An emerald vine bursting with life was wrapped around the girl's left slender wrist. The girl remembered her, but did not understand why she wrapped her arm. The vine she saw made the girl open her eyes in shock. Pieces of memories began to appear in her head again and again. From so many new memories, the girl began to feel a slight pain. Thanks to her memories, she was able to find out that in this world, in the city of Yonghai, there are 3 great houses. Ye Yang, whose body she ended up in, was a miss from one of these 3 houses. Not a single soul, except her mother, knew who the father of the young girl was. But, unfortunately, her mother could not tell her this either. After all, the young woman was bedridden due to a serious unknown illness. Ye Yang inherited her mother's family surname. However, the heavens of this world were not on her side. This was a world of cultivators, where only the strong could be recognized by society. Cultivators with their strength could move high, impassable mountains and boil deep oceans. That is, they were capable of doing the impossible. It was for these reasons that strong cultivators became highly respected by many people in this world. They became a kind of idols and had a lot of power and respect. But unfortunately for the young girl, Ye Yan did not have cultivation abilities. The people around her mocked her and bullied her cruelly. They considered her a great failure and the trash of their family. Not a single day could the girl hide from humiliation. Everyone reminded her that she had no abilities. This greatly affected the sensitive girl, and her bitter tears flowed like a river. There was only one person in this world who always protected her. This person was Ye Yang's grandfather. He was the head of their family. But 3 months ago, grandfather isolated himself from everyone in order to prepare for the transition to a new level of cultivation. Therefore, the baby lost her only patron. However, the young guy, Ye Qingyun, who was from a side branch of the Ye family, was always polite and attentive to the girl. He amused her with his jokes. 2 days ago, he invited Ye Yang to the festival. And then the real problems began. Ye Linglong's cousin was secretly in love with Ye Qingyun, so she was furious after hearing the news. The night before the festival, Ye Linglong told Ye Yang that there was a moon spirit flower growing on the spirit rock that could cure her mother. But the moon spirit flower withers very quickly, and time is limited. Naive Ye Yan believed her envious sister, and in order not to waste time, went to the cliff alone. Suddenly, the girl behind her heard a man's noise, which greatly frightened her and forced her to turn around. It was a group of bandits who, apparently, were waiting for her. Ye Yan, standing on the edge of the abyss, understood that she could not escape from the crowd of men that surrounded her. Gritting her teeth in despair, the girl jumped off the cliff along with one bandit, grabbing his hand. Yang Murong realized that she was in Ye Yang's body and actually moved back in time. She scratched her pink, long-haired head in shock. The girl thoughtfully rested her chin on her small fist and reasoned. The previous owner of this body was very unhappy, but since she now took possession of this body, a lot has changed. Yang Murong resolutely looked into the distance, narrowing her eyes angrily. She decided that Ye Linglong and everyone who bullied this girl would greatly regret it, and she would return all the pain to them tenfold. Yang Murong decided that from now on she was Ye Yang, but the young girl had one big fiery problem, namely, a river made of lava. The girl cried from not understanding why she ended up in such a terrible place. Even if she was an invincible and flawless CEO of the 21st century, she definitely couldn't handle this. Because of her tears, her big blue eyes seemed to become even bigger. Suddenly, through her growing hysteria, she felt that her vine bracelet began to move and began to glow with a slight glow. She stared at her hand in surprise. The girl, pressing her left hand to her chest, felt as if the vine was leading her forward into the lava. Stronger streams of green light were emanating from the vine. Ye Yan was perplexed. After all, there was lava in front of her. She knelt before it and felt the intense heat of the fire. The bracelet pulled her hand closer to the lava, guiding her. The girl realized that the vine can use its power in this world. The vine began to lengthen and stretch closer to the lava. The light from her became very strong, and the girl had to squint. The vine absorbed the energy of fire that was in the lava. After a while, the girl stared in shock at the product of the vine's activity. Her eyes widened at what she saw, and her mouth opened wide. The vine made a way out for the girl, removing the lava in her path. It seemed as if the vine had sucked all this lava into itself. After all, in its place there was a wide rocky road. But the vine came back, which surprised the girl. It turned out that the vine was tired of doing magic. With the return of the vine, the girl felt something strange in her body, and saw streams of green energy around her. There was a feeling that even the blood in her veins would now begin to boil. The girl slowly exhaled calming air from her lungs to stop the incoming panic. She was apparently able to convert the energy that was absorbed by the vine into her own energy. Ya Yen collected streams of power into a magical sphere that was placed in her hand. The girl wanted to test her newfound strength. Her gaze was decisive, and there was a certain excitement and anticipation in it. After releasing the sphere, the girl saw a section of lava nearby stir up. She was amazed, because now she could create large air currents with just the movement of one hand. The girl, going through the memories in her head that belonged to the previous owner of this body, remembered that such power is equivalent to a third-level warrior. It turns out that she, the useless Miss Ya, rose to this level in 1 day and 1 night. In this world, no one's strength could increase so quickly, and this made the girl very happy. In this case, she is not useless, but on the contrary, super brilliant. She slyly thought that now it is unknown what will happen if Linlin, nicknamed the Genius, finds out about this. Fire lanterns soared into the sunset sky. The whole city came out to celebrate the festival. Ye Linglong walked arm in arm with Qingyun. She sprayed her charm on the young man, but it was in vain. He was sad about something. She asked him to try to have fun together. With her hands folded in a prayer gesture in front of her face, she smiled sweetly at the young man. Nothing showed in her the cruelty that was inherent in the girl. She wanted to go look at the nightlights and make a wish. But the young man did not listen to her, deeply immersed in his thoughts. He told the girl that he still felt strange. These words struck the girl unpleasantly. Linlong tried to be so sweet, but he didn't even think about her. Ye Qingyun began to ask his companion again where Ye Yang went. After all, they agreed to meet and go shopping at noon, and Yang didn't even warn him that she wouldn't come to him. Linlong asked him not to think too much. In her opinion, perhaps Sister Yang thinks that she is a failure due to her lack of cultivation ability, so she is ashamed of being with them. She noted that there would be a lot of performances on South Street, and they should hurry to get their seats. But her words were not heard. The guy still believed that something must have happened to Ye Yang. Therefore, he left the girl alone and went to look for Ye Yang, wishing his companion to have fun. The girl stood angry among the noisy and cheerful crowd. She was so lonely and blamed Ye Yang for it. Walking down the street, Linlin turned into a dark alley, remaining unnoticed by anyone. There, a man in a mask was waiting for her, who bent down on one knee during her appearance. The man reported that he had just received a message from his people, and the whole operation was successful. The girl immediately cheered up after hearing the report and left the alley. She laughed that Brother Qingyun realized too late. After all, if he finds Ye Yang now, it will be too late. Ye Yan was already dead. This thought distorted the girl's sweet face with a cruel smile. She kept saying that Ye Yang couldn't blame her for this. The girl believed that Ye Yang should only blame herself for her death because she received the support of her grandfather. She was loved despite the fact that she was useless trash and because of Qingyun's care. Ye Yan was smiling happily at this time, looking at the rocky road that the vine had paved for her. The girl believed that she should quickly return home and make an unexpected and unpleasant surprise for someone. The girl carefully walked along the road, getting closer and closer to the rock. She raised her head and looked at the high rock and was glad that she had been rock climbing before when she was traveling in Northern Europe. Rolling up the long, wide sleeves of her dress, Ye Yan encouraged herself with a confident expression that she could even climb the Alps. And this small rock was a mere trifle for her. The young girl had to make a lot of effort to climb to the base of the rock. Ye Yang's body was not so trained and the wide robes also made it difficult to climb the rocks. But the girl achieved her goal. She reached the first tree she came across and loudly pressed her palm against it. The girl realized that this body clearly lacked training. The climb was very tiring. She spent a lot of time. Sweat poured from the girl like hail. Having caught her breath, she smiled slyly and victoriously. As she had always believed, there was nothing that would stump a super invincible genius beauty like her. The girl adored herself for her fortitude. By that time, the sky was covered with dark purple thunderclouds. It became unsafe to stand under the tree, but the girl did not have time. A large lightning bolt struck exactly the tree on which the young body was leaning. The girl watched in tension as lightning struck her. In those seconds, one thought flashed through her head. She was finished, struck by lightning because she was too self-confident. She will not be able to hide from such retribution. The skies erupted with a clap of thunder. Lightning felled a tall, dry tree, but the girl remained standing unharmed and watched in shock at the small lightning bolts that crackled around her like an energy field. The belated reaction sobered up the girl. She sat down in hysterics, covering her head with her hands. Not even a day had passed since she moved through time, and she was almost killed by lightning. She screamed and prayed to God because he is so kind-hearted. When the initial shock wore off, she realized that she did not feel the intense pain that should have pierced her body. The girl didn't understand why she still regained consciousness after this. She hesitantly began to open her eyes. What she saw made her open her eyes sharply and wide. Her body was completely unharmed, and her energy level even increased slightly. The girl realized that the ancient vine helped her absorb lightning. Before that, she helped her absorb lava, and the same thing must have happened now. Looking at the vine with interest, she could not find other explanations for such phenomena. The vine could not only absorb lava, but also electrical discharges. Perhaps she will be able to absorb other things later. The girl's eyes sparkled with admiration when she looked at the vine. After all, in this case, she really bought a treasure, and it was incredible. She no longer had to worry about dying from lightning in the future. Smiling contentedly, she gathered her strength and restored the balance of her frightened nervous system. The girl was going to return to her family and meet with Ye Linglong, her abuser. The girl went towards the city, and behind her a tree was burning out. The fire broke out after a lightning strike. Ye Yan reasoned that her little sister might actually be glad that she got rid of her, since she still hasn't returned. The Yi family residence was in chaos. In the main hall, Ye Yang's worried grandfather was trying to find out where his beloved granddaughter had gone. Ye Linglong knelt in front of her grandfather. He immediately realized that she was involved in this matter, because she was the last one to see Ye Yang. Linglong pretended to be an obedient and loving granddaughter. She bowed her head low to her grandfather and insisted that she knew nothing. But the head of the clan did not succumb to her charm. The man felt sick because of his nerves. He painfully clutched his heart. Ye Jintian distanced himself from everyone during his cultivation, hoping to break through above his level. He meditated and tried to increase his energy. But during the events on the cliff, the elderly man felt that Ye Yang was in great danger. This persistent feeling made the man stop his meditation. Things were really bad. He had no choice but to urgently interrupt his cultivation and leave his chambers. As a result of this, he suffered serious injuries, and his previous cultivation regressed. A weakened man went out onto the porch of his house. His legs could not support him. He had to look for support. His whole body was trembling, and his voice was weak. In the yard, a maid was chalking fallen leaves. She stared in surprise at the head of the clan, who had appeared before the appointed time. He only asked where Ye Yang was. Blood oozed from his mouth. The elder's first granddaughter tearfully claimed that she went to Ye Yang's court, but just to visit her little sister. She didn't do anything with it. Fake tears flowed from her amber eyes. The girl cried from not understanding why they didn't believe her. Ye Jintian turned around sharply at such a question. The man sincerely asked his granddaughter how he could trust her. A mask of sadness lay on his face. He was a perceptive man and saw right through his granddaughter. He angrily shouted that he didn't believe her, precisely because it was her. The elder said that if the girl had not been related to him by blood, he would have killed her long ago. He squeezed his heart, which felt like a sharp pain in his chest. The maids who stood in the same room whispered tensely. One of them said that she had never seen an elder so angry. It seems that the first miss created a huge problem. Another noted that Ye Linglong is the blood granddaughter of the head, and she expressed her inability to understand why the elder would vent her anger over trash like Ye Yang. She believed that the head treated Ye Yang even better than his own granddaughter. Linlong's bowed face twisted with anger at her grandfather's words. She didn't think it was fair that everyone she cared about was putting that idiot first. After all, her sister could not compare with her in any way, neither in talent, nor in appearance, nor in status. The girl sat on her knees and suppressed her fire of anger within herself so that her grandfather could not notice anything. The elderly man was losing patience because his granddaughter did not want to tell him anything and stubbornly remained silent. The man coughed and blood spattered from his mouth. He shouted for one of the servants to bring him a whip. The servant immediately carried out his order. The golden whip lay on a red velvet pillow. The man confidently took the whip in his hand, causing Linlong to burst into tears even more. She is his granddaughter. How could he really want to punish her in front of strangers? The head of the Ye family hit the young girl hard with a long whip, but the cry of his son made him stop. A middle-aged man, the son of the head, tensely performed the obligatory bow. He claimed that he had news about Ye Yang's whereabouts. The head of the clan tiredly turned to his son, but in a tone impatient with objections, he ordered to quickly tell him where his granddaughter was. The man was constantly holding his heart, and there was a mask of pain on his face. The newly arrived man, stammering, tensely informed his father that he and his men had been unable to find Yang and bring her back. But they still managed to find a jade pendant near the cliff of the Spirit of Fire. Also, the search party found traces of someone falling from a cliff. The man was afraid that Yan might already be dead. The elder of the clan looked in shock at his granddaughter's pendant and could not believe his son's words. His granddaughter listened to the man's report with bated breath, because this was exactly what she wanted. Tension and a sense of death hung in the air. The elderly man trembled all over and hesitantly reached out his hand to the jade pendant. He couldn't believe what he heard. His hands dropped limply and the golden whip fell with a thud to the floor. The old man lost consciousness. His granddaughter was triumphant at that moment. She was incredibly happy that Ye Yang, that worthless trash, had finally died. And from now on, no one will dare take her away from him. Grandfather and Qing Yun will now love only her. Early morning the next day arrived at the estate of the Yi family. Sakura delighted with its blossoms. A light warm breeze carried its petals around the world. But the estate froze from the knock of death. After a long time the girl reached Yi's estate. She approached the large doors and noticed that in appearance, Yi's estate did not look so bad. The doors creaked as they opened. The servant, seeing the young lady of House Ye, broke out in a cold sweat from fear. They all believed that the second miss died from falling off a cliff. Therefore, the servant thought that he was being haunted by the ghost of a girl in broad daylight. The girl stared at him in surprise after such words. She only noticed that in front of her was a damn cowardly man. Yan ignored the servant, who was cowering in horror against the wall, and entered the estate with a happy face. The estate of the Yi family amazed the eye with its magnificent beauty and well-groomed condition. Flowers bloomed and fragrant in every corner. Every corner was pleasing to the eye of the beholder and showed that rich people lived in this place. The girl's tenacious mind immediately noticed how beautiful the courtyard of the residence was. She understood how much effort and investment it required. Suddenly, the girl heard male voices that were familiar to her from her memories. Her grandfather wanted to go to the Spirit of Fire Rock to look for her. The girl ducked around the corner to be able to overhear the conversation. The elder's son tried to convince his elderly father that it was not wise to send him on a search in his condition. The girl, meanwhile, remembered her past life. When she was still Yang Mirong, she came to leave home and start working. She never felt cared for by her family. This made her very sad. Yang Mirong reasoned that she would never have thought that she would have the chance to have a truly loving grandfather in the new world. Having made a decision, the girl suddenly jumped around the corner, appearing in front of her grandfather, uncle, and their servants. The men froze when they saw her. The girl happily ran up to her grandfather, delighting him with her return. The elder of the clan reached out with a trembling hand to his granddaughter, pronouncing her name. He lovingly stroked her head and told her how glad he was that she had returned home. The grandfather asked the girl to go inside and tell him all the details of what had been happening lately. His son looked in shock at the girl he had already buried. The elderly man said the following words with undisguised anger. He wanted to know who dared to touch his beloved granddaughter. From his face, one could see the promise of reprisal to every offender. The young maid ran to a rich estate. The estate was impressive in its size. The girl opened the door with a creak and anxiously entered the chambers. The girl knew that she had brought bad news to her mistress, and she would not be happy for it. The maid fell to her knees and bowed her head low. She told her Lady Linglong that her cousin did not die, and the elder brought her to the Fuyun estate. The first miss was combing her blonde hair with a beautiful comb at that moment. Hearing the news, she turned pale and abruptly threw the comb on the table. Turning around sharply, she shouted for the maid to repeat what she said again. The girl began to swear and behave in a way that a noble girl of a great family was not supposed to do. She kicked her maid in the head. From such a strong blow, the girl fell to the ground and the sound of the fall was heard. Ye Linglong came out of her chambers, angry that her sister was not dead. The girl understood that it was impossible for the girl to tell everything to her grandfather. Behind her, a maid could be seen who, when she fell, hit the floor and broke her head. Blood spread across the floor. She hurried to the Fuyun Palace, where the elder and his beloved granddaughter were already discussing the current situation. The girl helped her grandfather sit on a chair. He sternly asked her to tell everything that happened on the Rock of the Fire Spirit. Ye Yan thought about it. The original owner of the body went to the rock because Linlong told Ya Yan about a flower that could heal her mother. But the girl definitely invented this flower. And of course she will deny everything, and it will not be possible to punish her. The girl understood that she needed to think through her revenge plan. She activated actress mode and assured her grandfather that she was just going for a walk. She tearfully apologized for making everyone worry. She insisted that this incident had nothing to do with Sister Linlong. The girl claimed that she did not want her grandfather to blame her. But the man slammed his fist on the table and said affirmatively that he knew that she was the last one to visit her. The elder knew his granddaughter well and noted that she never liked leaving the house. Why then did she suddenly go so far away? He didn't understand why this stupid child was covering for Linlong. The girl, making a guilty face, asked her grandfather to stop asking her, and she repeated again that this has nothing to do with Linlin. Suddenly, the doors to the elder's chambers opened and Linlin brazenly entered. She was indignant and shouted that grandfather should not believe a single word of Ye Yang's garbage. The man was angry at his granddaughter's impudent behavior. He hit the table with such force that the water spilled out of the bowl. At the same time, the elder ordered the girl to kneel and that Yang had just defended her. Ye Yan pitifully stood behind her grandfather and watched the scene of quarrel. The man said sternly that according to the rules of the Ye family, Linlong would receive 3 lashes of whips as a light punishment for attacking him, and he ordered the servant to carry the whip. Ye Linglong stared at her grandfather in shock, but knelt obediently, falling to the floor with a crash. The old man took his golden whip again and struck at the young body of his first granddaughter. Meanwhile, she screamed how unfair he was to her. The girl desperately repeated, receiving blows, that she was his only blood granddaughter. She is the only one who bears the name of their family, while Ye Yan is no one. She thought that Ye Yang was just some foreign trash who couldn't bear her surname. After all, she is not like Linlong. The man said sternly and rudely to this that Linlong should remember that Ye Yang is his granddaughter, and she has a name. She will always be the second miss of the Yi family, and the effect of her words was sealed with a blow. After delivering 3 blows, the elder returned the whip to its rightful place. He ordered Linlong to kneel for 3 hours now before she returned to her room. Passing by the hunched figure of Linlong, the man did not even look in her direction. He just said that he really hoped he wouldn't see her try to hurt Yang again. Meanwhile, the girl was trembling on the floor. It might have seemed that the girl was trembling in pain, but her eyes gave her away. Linlong trembled with anger and hatred towards her sister. All she kept repeating was that Ye Yang should just wait. Ye Yan, who had been quietly watching this scene, turned around after her sister's angry words and slowly walked closer to her. Sitting down in front of her older sister, the girl smugly and confidently told her to remember only one thing. This was a warning that from now on, Linlong should not mess with her. Linlong listened in surprise to her so confident sister. Ye Yan stood up and walked out of the room, adding that if her sister did not follow the advice, she would greatly regret it. Ye Linglong turned around in shock. The girl's words made him a little scared because the girl had a strong feeling that Ye Yang had somehow changed. Ye Yan went out into the yard and thought about it. Ultimately, this is a world that looked at the talents of its occupant. Ye Linglong was indeed very talented, and if Ye Yang was going to deal with her, then she needed to prepare thoroughly. The young girl decided that first she had to get rid of the weakness in her body. The girl, walking around the estate, began to speculate that the real Ye Yang went to the fire spirit rock for the simple reason that she wanted to find a cure for her mother. She was interested in what condition the woman was in now, so she decided to hurry up and see her with her own eyes. She was in a hurry, trying to find the right direction to the house. Walking down the street, the girl was stopped by a shout that made her turn around. She recognized the voice of the person addressing her. Behind her walked Ye Qingshan with his 2 comrades. The young man called the girl trash and ordered her to stand still. He was very impudent and disrespectful to the girl. Ye Yang found out from the previous owner's memories who this guy was. This young man was Linlong's #1 devoted suitor. If it happened that his dear Linlong frowned for any of the possible reasons, then he would immediately start beating Ye Yang for fun. After the boy stopped beating, Linlong pretended to try to stop it and consoled her younger sister. Linlong thus gave Ye Yang the false belief that she was a good person. The current Ye Yang clenched her small fist angrily at such memories. Essentially, this couple bullied Ye Yan cruelly, but nevertheless, she truly considered Linlong to be good. She always forgave Ye Qingshan out of Ye Linglong's conviction. It was disgusting for the girl now. Ye Qingshan continued to speak rudely to the girl, who was lost in thought and reminiscing. He shouted that it was because of her that the elder punished Linlong and why Ye Yang was so cruel. After all, according to him, Linlong had always been kind to her. Ye Yan twisted her pretty face at this kind of treatment. She is the CEO who hated the most people calling her trash. Today she decided to teach the boy a lesson. However, according to the memories of this body, Ye Qingshan had already reached the 5th level. Therefore, the girl realized that she could defeat the young man only with the help of her intellect. Ye Yang innocently asked the guy if he really called her trash now. Ye Qingshan raised his head proudly as a sign of confirmation of her words. The girl unctuously continued that she remembers the guy was already 16 years old, but he was still at the 5th level. He can only follow Linlin around all day long. She wondered who exactly was the trash here. Then she hit her fist on her palm and made a surprised and delighted face. The girl seemed to casually say that Qingyun is also 16 years old, but he is already at the 8th level. And, in comparison, Qinshan has no place in Linlong's heart. Two guys behind their ringleader's back began to whisper that whether the garbage was really provoking Qinshan, now the guy was simply obliged to beat her severely. The second one noticed that he had not noticed such eloquence in Ye Yang. She deftly expressed all the shortcomings. While the girl innocently mocked her offender, in the meantime, he began to get angry. The forces around him created a golden aura. When emotions reached their peak, he ran towards the girl and raised his fist to strike. Power sparkled from the fist. He shouted that he would kill Ye Yan for being such a piece of trash. Failure awaited him. The girl deftly dodged at the last moment, which greatly surprised her. It was a fire strike that the young man practiced. The Cultivator world was worth its name. It is truly ability-based. The guy was 2 levels higher than the girl, but what a difference in strength could be seen. Flying past the girl, the young man slammed his fiery fist straight into the wall, creating large cracks in it. The girl realized that if she had not dodged, she would have been seriously injured or died. She was able to avoid this because she was underestimated. Meanwhile, the guy's friends continued to whisper loudly. One remarked that Qinshan was indeed a weakling. The second one replied that this technique was so powerful, but how come he couldn't hit Ye Yang, who doesn't know martial arts? Yet Qinshan began to boil from this deliberately loud whisper. He turned around and said through his teeth that Ye Yang was a vile mongrel, and since she was so brave, then let him come and hit her again. But the young girl was much more cunning and smarter than her opponent. She asked him softly if he really liked Ye Linglong. This question greatly surprised the guy and tempered his ardor. The girl, seeing the desired effect of her words, continued. She asked him if he wanted her to hate him. The guy sincerely did not understand where the girl was going. He stared at her stupidly, scratching the back of his head. He wondered what Ye Yang meant. Ye Yan continued her thought. Linlong was punished because she lied to her and almost hurt her, so she was whipped 3 times and forced to kneel for 3 hours simply because she was almost hurt. She innocently pointed out to the guy that if he wanted to take revenge for her, then didn't he think that she would be punished more strongly? If grandfather got really angry, he could very well cripple her. The guy should know Linlong better than she does, whether the girl will forgive him after this. Ye Qingshan recoiled from the girl when he realized the situation the girl had described to him. He began to stutter out of sincere horror because he knew that Linlong would never forgive him. Ye Yang smiled slyly to himself at the young man's reaction. A 16-year-old boy shouldn't even think about bullying her. The young man loudly said that today he would let the girl get off so easily, but next time he would take revenge. These words brought a sly smile from the girl. Ye Yan knew that it was not she who got off easy today, but this boy. The girl asked the guy how he wanted to leave here so easily. The guy turned around sharply and shouted angrily that he was letting her go. What else did she need from him? Ye Yan smiled sweetly, blue eyes filled with innocence, but appearances were deceiving. She reminded her interlocutor that he slapped her a year ago, and she wanted to return the favor. Qingshan angrily hissed through his teeth that Ye Yan must have gone crazy if she wanted to hit him. Ye Yan laughed loudly and said that she then had no choice but to tell her grandfather that the guy attacked her in order to help Linlong take revenge. The guy had no words from such an attack from the girl. He clenched his fist and pointed his finger at her indignantly because he could not hit her. The heroine quietly whispered to him that everyone knew that she could not cultivate, but at the same time, he tried to use a fire strike on her. 600 or 700 cat powers would be enough to cripple her, and I wonder what the head will think about. The guy was already on the verge of a hysterical fit. He was overcome with the realization of what the elder would do to him for using a fiery blow on his favorite. But panic turned into anger, revealing the young man's filthy soul. The eyes narrowed and a smirk appeared on his face. He triumphantly said that if he kills the girl now and buries her in the garden, will her grandfather find her? This stupid threat made the girl laugh. She pointed her finger at the 2 guys who stood behind Qingshan and advised him to first deal with the witnesses. The laughter stopped, and she sang in a soft voice that the guy should look at the faces of his friends. She doubted that they were that loyal to their ringleader. Ye Qingshan looked surprised and tense at the two guys who were looking at him in fear at that moment. They took a long step back, away from the girl's offender. The girl faked loudly and scaredly screamed at the couple to be careful, because he would try to force them to remain silent by any means. She advised one to run left and the other to run right to confuse Qingshan. The girl's words had the desired effect. The guys were even more frightened, and Qingshan stared at them in surprise. He didn't expect the guys to turn away from him so easily. A couple of friends took 2 more big steps back. Ye Yan giggled quietly into her palm at this performance. Qingshan looked at her intensely and realized that this was exactly what she wanted. He began to bite his lips nervously. The guy immediately activated the actor mode, even though he was bad at it. He put on an intensely sweet face and began to unctuously say that he had no need to kill anyone and was making a joke at Yang's expense. The young man said that the elder is usually busy, so there is no need to bother him over trifles, and this caused the girl to smile in anticipation. She came closer to him and gave him a slap that he didn't expect. The girl said that it was a favor for the fact that he hit her 2 years ago, and she is returning it. The guy touched his cheek with a shocked finger, on which there was a red mark from the blow. All he could do was tensely agree with his interlocutor. Ye Yan had no intention of stopping and decided to take it out on him to the fullest. She hit him on the second cheek. The guy exploded after that and started screaming why she hit him this time. The girl innocently said that she remembered how Qingshan pushed her to the ground 2 months ago, and slyly asked if this was not a good reason to give it again. The young man, realizing that he could not resist now, said that there was no problem. The girl, seeing such obedience, began to strike her offender again and again. Each blow was accompanied by some kind of resentment from the guy from the past. One of Qingshan's friends, who was still standing nearby, was surprised to see that Qingshan was so weak. He realized that he did not want to be his subordinate. His friend spread his hands and completely agreed with his comrade, watching in shock what was happening. He took his friend by the arm and invited him to go and eat, because there were many other people who were many times stronger than Qingshan. The girl hit the guy again and again. His cheeks were already completely inflamed from the slaps. He clenched his fists nervously so as not to answer her. When she, having finished, began to shake her hands, the guy covered his face with his hands in fear. Ye Yan waved goodbye to him and said that she was tired of beating him today, so that's enough for now. She wanted to finish another time. Ye Qingshan touched his bruised cheeks in surprise. He looked at the back of the girl who was happily walking away after beating him. He didn't believe that this girl was Ye Yang. After taking a few steps, Ye Yan turned around and said that she had a few words for the young man. She said that everything tends to change. No one will be strong forever, and next time he should not bully a girl because she is weaker than him. The girl thought that her predecessor was a very stupid girl. After all, despite her grandfather's support, she was still bullied by others. Now Ye Yang was pleased with herself. Just by looking at it, it is obvious that Qingshan hates her with all his heart, but from now on he will not dare to touch her. She felt a wonderful sense of triumph. Ye Qingshan's cheeks were swollen. He slammed his fist hard on the wall and leaned on it. He believed that Ye Yang was still trash. He didn't care that the girl was supported by the elder of the clan. He made plans for revenge. When the girl left the residence, he wanted to take revenge on her for everything, and believed that she should not then blame him for cruelty. A handsome man watched this short skirmish. He was sitting nearby on a tree, hiding behind the leaves. He liked what he saw and was interested in the girl with her persistent behavior and sharp mind. Next to him was his faithful assistant. He noted that this woman is really smart, and her vigilance as well as her eloquence are terrifying. His master smiled at this and replied that there was no point in mocking the poor girl. His thoughts were completely different. To his surprise, this young woman was his type. Meanwhile, Ye Yan seemed to feel that someone was watching her. She turned around sharply and glared at the tree, but the man managed to hide behind a thick trunk. The girl looked at the branches of the tree, but it was empty there too. She thought it was suspicious, doubting that her senses of vigilance had deceived her, and she was imagining things. She reached the mansion that belongs to her mother and her. It was really in poor and unkempt condition. The cement of the yard was cracked, the doors creaked terribly. The girl recalled that according to rumors, Ye Yao used to be the elder's favorite. Even though she was only 16, her strength level was that of an empire master. Everyone knew her as the genius of the Ye family, which even the head of the Ye family, Ye Zhengtian could not compare with. But one day the woman disappeared and returned a year later with a child in her arms, not even being married. Since then, her health had become very weak, and her cultivator skills had no longer developed. On top of all the problems, her little daughter did not have any outstanding abilities. Previously respected and strong, Ye Yao now lives in such an abandoned place, which greatly saddened the girl. She opened the rickety doors to her mother's chambers. The whole air was saturated with the smell of medicine. It was so strong that no one could breathe normally. Unfortunately, Ye Yao cannot stop taking these medications. Ye Yao lay unconscious in bed. She was severely exhausted by the disease. Her strength was exhausted. The woman's sleep was restless, which was noticeable on her face. The girl looked at her new mother and was sad. She was incredibly sorry that this beautiful woman had such a sad end and no one could help her. Ye Yan recalled that mother was very kind to her little daughter. She diligently took care of Yang as a child. Ye Yao loves his baby very much. The girl understood that she was now replacing the previous owner of the body. Therefore, from now on, Ye Yao is her mother. She was determined that starting from today, she would not allow anyone to abuse a woman. Sitting on the edge of the woman's bed, she sadly reasoned and gave herself up to memories. Suddenly, she felt strange vibrations in the area of her hand. She stared at her in surprise. A faint stream of energy emanated from the vine. The girl was startled to realize that the vine had just caused fluctuations in her spiritual sea. This realization made me very tense. The girl heard the city of an old man who groaned that the poison was very strong. She began to look around the room in bewilderment, not understanding who was nearby. The old man began to laugh that the girl would not be able to find him. And in truth, Ye Yan didn't see anyone nearby. The old man said that he entered the girl's mind with the help of the chaos vine. However, he argued that her mother would not live long because the poison had already penetrated into the lungs. Ye Yan sighed heavily at this news. She, gathering all her strength into a fist, seriously turned to the vine on her hand. She was interested in whether something could be done about the poison. The old man cleared his throat and told her that of course there was a solution to this problem, but saving this woman would not be so easy. In addition, the old man had several conditions. The girl, putting on a menacing face, clarified that he wanted to talk to her about the conditions, without even showing himself. The old man laughed hoarsely and convinced Ye Yan that there was no need to worry so much. After all, he was already next to her. It was a miniature spirit of an old man on a fluffy cloud. He had long gray hair and the same gray long beard. He was dressed in all light colors. The girl first stared at the ephemeral old man with an incomprehensible look, and then began to shout that this old man was hiding inside the vine that she was wearing. Ye Yan was hysterical that she was in some kind of fantasy novel. She cried to heaven, asking them to be merciful to such a poor girl. She asked to give her the opportunity to leave because this is all really happening to her. After giving herself over to hysterics for several minutes, throwing out her emotions, the girl took more air into her lungs and calmed down. She knew she had to get this all sorted out first. Already calmly, the girl asked the old man if there were any reasons why she could trust him. This question from the young girl greatly surprised the spirit. The girl began to think soberly and ask logical questions. She asked for what purpose the elderly man penetrated her consciousness. The same question made her interlocutor terribly angry. He started shouting that if she thought that he had come there because he had nothing to do, then it was in vain. Incidentally, he noted that he was the previous owner of the Chaos Vine. He had been inside the vine for so long and thought he had found a person with divine power. He entered the girl's consciousness only to confirm his thoughts. The old man said that the laws of heaven forbid him to tell anything important about divine power. The girl was interested in her. Therefore, he said importantly that if she agreed to undergo the test, then perhaps he would accept her as his student. Then he can tell her everything he knows. Ya Yen stared at the old man in surprise and asked what test he was talking about. He said importantly that in this world, no one knew more than him about how to use the ancient vine for cultivation. If the girl can pass the test, she will not only be able to save Ye Yao, but will also become the strongest in the world. However, according to the man, this test was extremely difficult and not much time was given to complete it. If the girl doesn't hurry, then he thinks that no one and nothing can help Ye Yao. The girl confidently assured the old man that difficulties had never frightened her. She was determined to pass the necessary test. Ye Yao remembered that throughout her life, she had never given up on what she wanted so easily. She wanted to save her mother, even if she had to sacrifice her life. The girl believed that there was no need to be afraid of a small test. The old man indignantly put his hands on his hips at the girl's confidence. He noticed that the girl was indeed very impudent and arrogant. Ye Yao was not affected by such words. The old man said it was time to see what she could do. He said that when she failed, she would not even think of begging him for a second chance. The girl slyly noted that enough empty chatter and it was time to go. They came to the bamboo forest. The air in the forest was very refreshing and pleasant. It seemed to the girl that besides her, there was not a single soul there. It was an ideal place for cultivation. The old man threw her a large blue notebook. Clearing his throat, he said that everyone knows that martial arts are divided into 4 levels: heavenly, earthly, mystical, and divine. The girl caught the notebook in her palms in surprise. The old man continued that each of the levels is divided into 3 ranks: low, medium, and high. The speed step technique belonged to the mystical level. This technique is the pinnacle of mystical martial arts. With perfect cultivation, the girl will be able to teleport within 10 meters. The old man said that if she could teleport 3 meters in one night, then she would pass the test. Ye Yan realized with determination in her eyes that in a world where only the strongest are respected, if she wants to protect those close to her, she needs to become stronger. The girl got to work. She recited the spell over and over again, forming her fingers into intricate movements. Energy flowed around her in bright streams. But unsuccessfully. An hour later, the girl was already wet from the sweat that was pouring like a river down her face. She was as tense as possible, but she couldn't do it. She managed to overcome only a meter using teleportation. As soon as this distance was covered, the girl fell to the ground with a loud bang. Night had already come to the bamboo forest, and only the light from the girl's energy illuminated the space a little. The old man, fluttering in the air on his cloud, carefully watched the girl's efforts. When she fell, the girl injured her shoulder until it bled, tearing her dress. She was in great pain. Her legs were shaking from fatigue. But for the sake of saving her mother, she still got to her feet and continued new attempts. She knew from experience that in order to become stronger, she had to go through a lot. Pain is nothing to her. Ye Yan clenched her teeth tightly and tried to overcome the annoying trembling. Late at night, when the full moon already illuminated the bamboo forest, the girl was still honing her skill. She finally managed to teleport a short distance, which greatly inspired her and gave her strength. The girl firmly believed that if she managed to improve her skills before dawn, then her mother could be saved. The old man was already snoring loudly on his cloud, not forgetting to tell the girl to continue developing her skills. She trained until the early morning. The morning sun illuminated the forest, small birds chirped sitting on the branches. A night without sleep and heavy loads greatly affected the girl's condition. Dark circles lay under her eyes, making her look like the panda that lives in this forest. But the girl was pleased with herself. She had mastered the skill. The old man woke up from the ringing laughter of the girl's triumph. He rubbed his eyes after sleep, stretched heavily after a sweet dream, and asked if the girl could teleport. The girl smiled contentedly at her observer's question. She quickly spoke the words of the teleportation spell and channeled the power. And then the girl teleported 3 meters, while only a quick characteristic sound was heard when moving. The girl asked how the old man liked her new skill. The man stared at the girl in surprise and shouted. He shouted in disbelief that she was really able to master such a complex skill in one night. Ye Yan did not expect such a violent reaction and remained silent in shock. The old man began to cry because he thought that she was an ordinary girl, but such a surprise awaited him. It turns out that the old man was simply happy, and these were tears of happiness. After all, he finally, after so many years, met someone so talented. Yes, this result was truly amazing. The man noticed that now those who looked down on the girl would really regret it. Ye Yan didn't really understand what this old man was talking about. He impressed her with his mood swings. The old man now began to call the girl a doll. He informed her that she had successfully passed the test, and the promise he made to her yesterday will certainly be fulfilled. There was a certain importance of the moment in the old man's voice. The girl looked at the little old man with delight. Her eyes sparkled with joy because she really did it and got the opportunity to save her mother. The old man importantly put on round funny glasses and took out a wooden stick from the wide sleeve of his robe. He said there were some things she needed to learn first. He demanded that she listen to him carefully and take his words seriously. The old man said that she must have wondered why her body caught his attention. He wanted to explain it. The old man said that on the Litian mainland, physique is the determining factor for cultivation. Warriors must develop their skills and learn to control the spiritual energy of one of the elements. Everyone has their own. It all depends again on their physique. However, if the energy of another element enters the body, then a catastrophe occurs. People who were born without a predisposition for cultivation in this world automatically became useless trash in the eyes of others, which was the case with the girl. The old man said that an ordinary cultivator could absorb spiritual energy selectively, but the girl was different from them because she was the owner of an ancient vine. Now the girl could control all possible elements, of which there were 5. What she heard shocked the girl. After all, if you add the old man's learning abilities to this, then her cultivation will reach an unprecedented level. Also, on the Litian mainland, there are rarely people who can control 2 elements. Therefore, they can found their own sect, or become the head of an entire region. The old man noted that if a person is able to control all 5 elements, then undoubtedly he will become a legend. The girl realized that this was truly an unprecedented case. She would become famous throughout the continent. Thanks to her strength and fame, no one will dare to call her trash next time. The girl was truly determined. The old man instructively told the girl that she should take advantage of this opportunity correctly, since she belongs to those people whose physique is not compatible with any element. But she is the owner of an ancient vine whose possibilities are limitless. He shouted that this had not happened for 1,000 years. The girl said incredulously that she realized that this was an incredibly rare thing, but the old man said that he was its previous owner, and this is slightly contradictory. The old man morally replied that the world is full of secrets and that she could know. He believed that 1,000 years flew by so quickly. Such a long period of time struck the girl. She suspiciously asks what this old goat is bragging about here. If he really is that old, he looks pretty strong. The old man said that he had no need to lie to her and that he was not an old goat. He has a name, but she better call him Evil, although in any case she will call him Teacher. The girl, in tense surprise, asked the name of her new teacher. The realization came to her abruptly and made her clutch her head in her hands in panic. The Evil One was the main character of Xuantian's novel and was incredibly powerful. But then the girl understood and drew conclusions from the new information. If she has such a teacher, then this will be a pretty good prospect. Ye Yan said with an important look that so be it, she recognizes the Evil One as her teacher. In her opinion, the most important thing then was to save her mother, so she ordered him not to forget about his promise. The Evil One became very angry at the girl's words. He did not understand what so be it meant, because many begged him to accept them in the teaching, but he refused everyone. He puffed heavily and glowed with righteous anger. Having let off steam, he said that of course he could save his student's mother. He said that she should now learn the heaven-consuming technique. Once she masters this technique, she can easily cleanse her mother's body of poison. The girl wanted to start at that very moment. The teacher noted that this method had long been lost, partly because it was difficult to cultivate, but she had an ancient vine. He was going to teach her the formula telepathically, and she would have to improve according to this formula. The girl obediently bowed her head and cleared her mind. The teacher asked her to concentrate and not be distracted by anything during the telepathic communication process. So they stood opposite each other in the thicket of the forest, communicating not with their voices but with their thoughts. Energy sparkled around them. When the transfer of information was completed, the old man said that he had given the entire formula to her, and from now on, her improvement would depend on her innate intelligence and her talents. The girl, like her teacher, understood that if she wanted to save her mother, then she should hurry up very much. She steadfastly agreed, with wrinkles between her eyebrows that betrayed her tension. The girl noticed that this sky absorption formula would be quite difficult to master. Ye Yang sat in the lotus position and prepared to meditate. The girl made passes with her hands, calling on energy. She decided that these were minor difficulties for her and closed her eyes, absorbed in the process. After several hours of his student's practice, Lukavi noticed that even though this was the girl's first practice, she was still able to maintain it for so long and very smoothly. He patted himself importantly on the chest, saying that it was a waste of his efforts to worry so much about this, because apparently her innate intelligence was really not bad. But his reasoning was interrupted by the girl's cough, because of which he began to swear heavily at her. He said she was a stupid girl and noted that if she felt like she was suffocating, she should stop and rest. Only then can you continue. He said she should stop training so hard. The girl cleared her throat again and said in a weak voice that she was in a bit of a hurry, as she wanted to cure her mother as quickly as possible. But she assured her teacher that she would definitely be fine. The girl looked softly at the elderly man and asked him not to worry because she was the CEO. She felt that she was already close to a breakthrough. The teacher was surprised by the girl's courage and remained silent as she continued to improve. Energy swirled around the young body in streams. The sun began to set, giving the bamboo forest soft sunset shades. The girl was still training hard. The energy lifted her body slightly above the ground. The girl's face was very tense and tired. She felt that the spiritual energy was spinning madly in her weak body. Soon she had to break through the barrier. A strong flash illuminated a piece of space in the forest where the girl and the old man were. The evil one noticed that the plants nearby began to slowly wither, and he realized with shock that this girl was incredible. The girl softly opened her eyes when she felt that a breakthrough of power had occurred. She joyfully whispered that Mom would now be saved. The teacher flew up to her that same second on a cloud. He stuttered in surprise. The old man did not understand how she managed to do this. In such a short period of time, she had learned such a tyrannical and rare heavenly art absorption technique. The evil one quickly shook his small fists in the air. There was such a storm of emotions in him. After all, the girl has now, as a result of practice, learned to absorb spiritual energy. To this, the girl smugly remarked that she, the general director, managed to simultaneously break through the 4th level of the body-tempering realm. The old man wondered how Ye Yang could talk about this so easily and carefree. The old man told his student that it took ordinary people several months, or even several years, to break through such a kingdom. Ye Yang cheerfully replied that how could a president like her be an ordinary person? She couldn't wait to go to Ye Yao, because she had already learned the necessary technique to help the woman. The old man agreed with the student, noting in such a characteristic old voice that the girl grumbles day and night. Ye Yan was happy and skipped along the path because she would finally be able to fulfill her wish. When the girl and her old teacher reached the door of her house, the evil one said that she needed to take her mother's hand and cast a spell on her body. This should have been enough for recovery. Entering her mother's chambers, the girl obediently reported that she understood the plan. She recalled, standing at her mother's bedside, that in her past life she left her family and was lonely, so she did not experience the warmth of family. To her great happiness, God gave her the opportunity to feel the warmth of a loving mother. The girl was not going to miss this opportunity and wanted to put all her strength into helping Ye Yao. The girl sat down on the edge of the sick woman's bed and took her hand in hers. Closing her eyes, she began to cast spells. Blue energy flowed around them in a way only known to her. The girl concentratedly used the sky absorption skill. No person in the world could have pulled it away at that moment. The woman wheezed restlessly in her sleep, and the girl began to lose strength. Ye Yan didn't understand what was happening. Was the poison so strong that even the ancient vine couldn't absorb it? When she absorbed the power of the fire, she felt normal. But not now. She felt very bad, as if something was draining her strength. Someone from outside shouted for her to stop. The girl was on the verge of losing consciousness. The girl tensely gathered her strength bit by bit, not listening to outside orders. After all, her mother had suffered for so long, she couldn't give up so quickly. She was not afraid of this poison. But she had to shockily interrupt the process of absorbing the poison and let go of her mother's palm. She couldn't do it any further, as if she could no longer absorb the poison, even though it continued to flow. She exhaled weakly. The teacher at this time burst into an abusive cry. He shouted angrily, telling her to stop. She didn't listen to him. This poison must be suppressed, not absorbed. The evil one spat out that even if she doesn't want to live, he wants it. But the girl was not offended. She noticed that her mother's condition was improving. While the man was burning with anger, the girl was glowing with joy. The old man was not going to give up so easily. He continued his angry tirade that the girl was laughing so stupidly in vain. Half of her mother's poison was suppressed. It wouldn't take her long to wake up. However, the girl has problems. She is poisoned. The joy instantly disappeared from the girl's face. My eyes widened and shivers ran down my spine. She pointed a finger at herself and asked how she could be poisoned. He shouted that this poison was extremely strong, and she would now need to repeat the procedure a couple more times for it to be completely removed. After all, she did this without thinking about the consequences for herself. It was impossible to absorb all the poison inside a woman with the help of a vine. The old man's words frightened the girl greatly. The poison was absorbed into the girl's body eventually, but if it was not treated soon, it would become more poisonous. The old teacher was sincerely worried about the girl, because when the poison flares up, both the girl and her mother with this poisoning will lie in a coma. Ye Yan, having overcome her shock and fear, began to remember. Fire poison, she remembered something about it. The girl said that behind the Forbidden Mountain there is a pool for spirits. Precious medicinal herbs were stored inside it. World essence was collected. There is an old way to treat poison. Just when she was poisoned, she has a plan for today. She must break into the Forbidden Mountain at midnight. How quickly the girl came to her senses stunned the old man. The area where the lake was located was fenced with a wooden fence. A large stone sign notified everyone that the following was a restricted area. The girl deftly jumped over the fence with the help of streams of energy that lifted her body like a feather. She ran through the dense forest towards her cherished goal. The girl listened to every rustle. She felt a rush of heat in her body and felt a slight pain. Ye Yan tensely realized that the fire poison in her body was beginning to manifest itself. But these sensations spurred the girl to run even faster. The small figure of a girl stopped at the entrance to a large cave, from which a bright light shone. Boldly and without hesitation, the girl entered the high labyrinth of the cave. The bright light was thinned by multicolored crystals that grew from the stone walls. The girl pushed herself. She needed to get there even faster. She left the cave and saw the light of the moon, which illuminated her path. This light reflected through the crystal-clear surface of the lake water. She was still far from him, but she could already smell the faint smell of medicine. Looking at all this splendor of nature, the girl noticed that this lake was really much more beautiful than what was stored in her memory. She was losing precious time, but still observing beauty. The girl walked to the edge of the lake, exposed her small legs, and crouching, lowered them into the water. She thought this place was really good. She was very pleased. She wondered if her memory served her correctly. Then the water temperature should be suitable for comfortable swimming, but today the water was very cold. Still, she was useful for the fire poison in her body. So she decided to wait here for the night and thought that everything would be fine with her. She decided to take off her clothes and take a full plunge. When the girl had already managed to throw her outer dress off her shoulder, she heard the old man screaming from behind. The teacher was also delighted with the place, but the girl began to get nervous, because how could the old man appear so suddenly? She was worried, because she could already swim in the lake without clothes. The old man stared at the girl in bewilderment, but when he realized what she was talking about, he burst out screaming. He shouted that she was a little girl, and what was there to look at? She could simply sever the connection with her mind, and it would disappear. The girl took this advice because the teacher was still a man. She strained her strength and broke the connection. Now she could reconnect as soon as she thought about it. The girl looked angrily at the place where the old man hovered. Ye Yan, impressed by the teacher's appearance, still decided to plunge into the water fully dressed. It seemed to her that the pool became even colder. This sensation made the girl feel strange. The girl relaxed, breathed slowly, looking at the water. She decided to examine the lake again to admire its purity and beauty. On the opposite side, she saw something strange. Squinting, she realized it was an ice sculpture. She screamed, then thought where such a beautiful ice sculpture came from here. Examining her closely, the girl covered her mouth with her palm in admiration. She had the idea that she could just go and look at her. This crazy idea caused a storm of emotions in the girl. She splashed her hands in the water. The water around began to move excitedly, and the girl continued to look at the sculpture. The riot of smells of the flowers that grew nearby seemed to fog the girl's head. She came close to the figure. At a closer distance, the girl noted that the man's appearance was very real, like a sculpture. But when I ran my hand over his cheek, I felt that he was very hard, like ice. Body temperature was very low. This is truly an ice sculpture. Such conclusions upset the girl. She didn't know what she would look like in this man's eyes if he did open his eyes. This thought greatly struck the girl, and it made me wonder what she was even thinking about now. She began to feel slightly hysterical, and her chaotic movements caused the water in the lake to become agitated. Having calmed down, Ye Young thought that in her entire life, even though she had never met anyone before, she had never seen such beautiful people before. Today, she was really interested in the ice sculpture of a man. The girl's thoughts were interrupted by acute pain. Fiery cuts appeared all over her body, causing unreal suffering. The girl's face was distorted with a grimace of pain. She didn't expect the poison to start acting so quickly and in this way. It was very sudden. She was getting worse every second, but the girl tried not to give up because her mother was worried about her. She decided that if she went directly into the source of the lake, it might be easier for her to control the effects of the poison. The girl realized that the spring was originally hot, but because of the ice statue, the water temperature dropped significantly. She thought that perhaps she could ease the burning pain if she leaned against the sculpture of a man. After all, it looked as if the ice was unusually strong. The girl was already crying from pain. Ye-yan was losing strength, and it was difficult for her to stand. She touched the chest of the sculpture with a trembling hand. But the touch did not ease the pain. It was still too hot and uncomfortable. The girl was in despair. Apparently that's why she decided to hug the man's sculpture. She pressed herself harder against the cold ice, burying her face in her chest. She felt better from the cold that the ice gave her. The coolness of the sculpture calmed the heat from the fiery poison. The burns on the girl's body gradually went away, and she managed to fall asleep. The girl did not stop hugging the man even in his sleep. The whole night passed like this. The morning sun illuminated the lake. The crystal-clear water began to sparkle. The young girl never loosened her grip on the sculpture's waist all night. Suddenly, in the perfect silence, a crash was heard. This sound came from cracks that began to appear throughout the sculpture. The ice cracked, and underneath was a living man, who suddenly opened his eyes. The young man felt himself being hugged and suddenly lowered his eyes. He wondered what happened while he was imprisoned in ice. After all, last night the ice poison appeared in his body, and he came to the hot spring. The girl pressed herself tightly to his body and rubbed her cheek against his torso in her sleep. She dreamed of something pleasant. She muttered the words, "bun," "soft buns," over and over in her sleep. The man was very surprised by this treatment. The reason why the girl cuddled so closely to him and slept was unknown to him. But after examining the miniature girl, he breathed out a sigh of relief as he recognized her. This girl was the one who was able to interest him. The man sweetly called the girl baby, and he quietly whispered how she could call such a bakery king. The girl continued to sleep peacefully and sweetly. The man was distracted from contemplating the girl and thought. His handsome face became very serious at this moment. He felt as if the ice poison in his body had been suppressed. He couldn't believe who choked on this poison. The man gently stroked the girl's soft hair and asked the sleeping woman what she had done to him. The girl reached the man's chest. He hugged her tighter and put his cheek on her head. He rubbed it against the girl's hair and ran it through his fingers. He whispered that this little girl saved the king. A sweet moment was ruined. In a dream, the girl grabbed the man's hand and bit him, trying to eat him. She tugged at his hand and hummed in her sleep, calling him a big muffin. This behavior greatly surprised the man, causing him to freeze. The girl's dream passed. She calmed down in the embrace. The man reasoned. Last night, he felt that an unknown fire was clearing his body of icy poison. Now he understood that the poison was purified by the girl who stood in front of him. It all looked like this. The word fragile baby was his savior. He wondered if it was she who had hugged him so tightly last night. His lips stretched into a sly smile at the thought that crossed his mind. The king was not going to let the girl run away anywhere. He deftly picked up the sleeping girl, as if she were not a heavy burden for him, and he carefully carried her to the shore so that she would not wake up. He admired her calm and sweet face, which was covered with blush. Suddenly, the man grabbed the girl's body tightly with one hand, and with the other reached out to her cheek, caressing her earlobe. He pulled her face closer, feeling her calm breath on his cheek. It was at this second that the girl began to wake up, sleepily opening her blue eyes. She inhaled sharply when she saw the man's violet eyes in front of her. But she didn't have time to move away. She wouldn't have been able to. The man was already confidently holding her chin. He quickly closed the remaining distance between their lips and kissed the girl softly. Yang put her fists on the man's powerful chest in shock and widened her eyes. The man quickly moved away and smiled contentedly. The man asked the frozen girl if she had woken up. The girl gave off an aura of misunderstanding of the situation in which she found herself by the will of fate. The girl, having come to her senses, began to rub her lips in embarrassment. She screamed indignantly that he stole her first kiss and who he even was. Her scream was as loud as possible. A minute later, the scream turned into hysterical crying because this was her first kiss in 2 lives. The girl's mood changed very quickly. She covered her lips with her hands in panic. The man, calmly looking at this changeability of the girl's reaction, raised his index finger up and said who even allowed her to touch him. "This king never loses." The man's next words shocked the girl again and made her look up at him in bewilderment. The man spread his hands and said that she could return the kiss, but this was also his first kiss, and it seems that it was unsuccessful. The girl managed to look at him and intensely realized that this particular man was the ice statue last night. She indignantly asked him why he came to life. Can an ice sculpture come to life? Such correct questions already made the king tense, but he did not think to explain himself. They still stood waist-deep in water. The man did not answer the girl's questions, but said that his name was Xuanji Liu and she should remember it. Yan bit her lip. Her fair skin began to turn red due to the growing anger inside the girl. She repeated his name, saying that it looked like he was not an ice statue, but a living person. She chuckled sarcastically at this. A stream of different thoughts swirled in her head. She slowly exhaled and crunched her small fists. She noticed that the man's name was not so bad, but he stole her first kiss and she, as a president, never loses. The girl began to get angry at the man's initiative and noticed that she was an incredibly kind president, so she would simply crush him like a bug. Yan jumped, let out a warrior scream and raised her leg to strike. Xuanji Liu smiled calmly at this performance. The girl's anger and determination gave way to tension and bewilderment. After all, her leg stopped a few centimeters from the man's chest. Without reaching what she wanted, the girl hung in the air in a striking position and could not move. The man only asked if she really called herself a bug. The girl swore angrily in her thoughts at her new acquaintance. She said out loud that he had angered her and would receive the invincible water that belonged to her. She spread her arms to the sides and summoned magic. Yan thought that this man was too suspicious and unpredictable, and his strength was truly terrifying. The girl was making a plan to take revenge on a man for a stolen kiss. She knew she had to be wise to defeat him. The first step she highlighted was to deliver an invincible water strike so that the spray would block his view. She cunningly thought that the king would focus on the water attack, and she would have time to teleport unnoticed, which would discourage him. Yang wanted to teleport to his head so she could easily hit and crush the nasty bug. The girl activated her warrior mode, shouted, "Get it!" and quickly went on the attack, forming streams of water around her. She was sure that she was the only one who received such power and should only try to fight it. Yan wished death to her offender. She used waves of her arms to intensify the waves around the man. Such movements made him smile mockingly. Xuanji Liu did not even try to somehow resist the girl and stop her. He stood confidently as she used her spirit step to approach his head from behind. The girl had the thought that the man understood her plan, which is why he was so smugly confident in himself. When there was very little left to reach the goal, the girl screamed indignantly and in shock, because in a second the man disappeared into the air and she plopped into the water. Quickly emerging, the girl displeasedly wiped the water from her face. She didn't understand how she could have missed him. How was this possible? The king walked on the water, already fully dressed. He noticed that the girl was very interesting. She was only level 3 in martial arts, but her moves were much better. It turns out that there is such a talented girl in the E family. The girl, hearing a voice behind her, turned around angrily and narrowed her eyes. There was a crease between her eyebrows. She didn't understand how the man she was seeing for the first time knew that she was from the Yi family. The man stood confidently on the water as if it were solid ground. He praised the girl for her courage and calmness, as well as for her ability to plan and wait for opportunities. In his opinion, which he said out loud, she was a very interesting little girl. The girl was only infuriated by such praise. She found the man so intrusive. He expressed regret that Yang was only at the 3rd level, and in their level it was practically nothing. She would never become his opponent. After these words, the girl's eyes widened angrily and filled with righteous anger. Ye-yan clenched her fist and responded tartly that he was only playing with her because his level was much higher. It was such a shame. The man did not react to the taunt, only said that he liked to play with others. He commandingly told her to keep that look when she wanted to hit him but couldn't. The girl flashed her eyes angrily while looking at her interlocutor. He laughed at her, saying that she should look at him like that, it was cute. Ye-yang tensely asked her hated interlocutor what he wanted from her, but the answer made her stare at the man in disbelief. The king said that he did not want anything from her. A second later, he was pressed against her, gently lifting her chin. He whispered that he just wanted to taste what her lips tasted like again. The girl was speechless from such impudence, but noticed that her body did not obey at all. Ye-yan could not move again as the man used his subjugation magic on her. The girl felt the man's lips gently pressing against hers. Ye-yan thought that she hated him, but since she couldn't resist, she would at least enjoy kissing such a handsome guy. 20 minutes later, the couple was still kissing. The girl thought wearily that the man was truly a bastard. He really kissed her for so long, and if they continue in the same spirit, she risks suffocation. The man seemed to read her thoughts and pulled away. He stroked the girl's cheek with his fingers and said that she tasted good. After these words, the girl felt that she had regained control of her body, and the man disappeared into thin air. After him, only a dozen blue butterflies remained, and a whisper that they would meet again. The girl first watched the fluttering of butterflies in fascination, and then burst into curses about the bastard who took advantage of her and ran away. She wanted to find out where this Ji Liu came from. She wanted to quickly raise her power level. After all, when they meet again, she will not be so helpless and will fight back. Ye-yan realized that Ji Liu helped her overcome the fire poison. Because of this thought, the girl hurriedly left the water and called the master to help her check whether her body could get rid of the poison. The teacher suddenly appeared behind her and said in surprise that the fire poison had actually become less. He didn't understand who helped her. In his opinion, the power of the lake was not capable of such a thing overnight. The old man's remark greatly tensed the girl. She thought deeply that Xuan Jiliu stole her kiss, so she decided not to tell the teacher anything. She mentally swore at her new acquaintance and advised him not to come across her again. The teacher looked questioningly at his careless student. She cleared her throat awkwardly and said that since the poison had subsided, everything was fine now, and they could quickly return to see their mother. The girl and her teacher returned unnoticed to the girl's mother. Ye-yan sat restlessly on the chair in front of her mother's bed. Ye-yao was still sleeping, but her sleep became more restful. After some time of waiting, the woman opened her eyes. She faintly noticed that this time, when she fell ill, she no longer hoped to meet her child again. Apparently God heard her prayers and allowed her to wake up for the meeting. Ye-yao thought with trepidation in her heart that she didn't know that her mother's soft voice could give such warm feelings. Her parents in a past life died when she was still a baby, so the girl never got to feel this. The girl tenderly took her mother's hand and said that Ye-yao had almost recovered, so she could look at her every day. Ye-yang helped her mother sit up and lean on the pillows. The woman, still weak from a protracted illness, whispered that she felt much better than before. She didn't understand why the pain subsided so suddenly. Ye-yao gritted her teeth forcefully. She was instantly angry that her mother had actually been poisoned. The girl honestly admitted that she knew that her mother was not sick. These words frightened the sick woman. She did not understand how her daughter knew that the poison was in her body. Ye-yao asked how her daughter found out. The girl thought in confusion, listening to her mother's tone. She got the feeling that the woman knew about the poisoning. She wondered how long Ye-yao had known. Ye-yan was a very smart girl. She worriedly wondered why her mother didn't tell her anything. The woman whispered pleadingly that it didn't matter where her daughter heard about it, but she shouldn't have told anyone. Nobody was supposed to know. This request surprised Ye-yang, but she decided not to bother her mother now and obediently nodded her head. The girl found it all very strange. Ye-yan decided that she would deal with these secrets and intrigues a little later. The girl was brought out of her thoughts by her mother's strong cough. The woman was coughing and covering her mouth with a pink handkerchief, which was bleeding. The girl frightenedly called the teacher and asked why her mother was still coughing up blood. The old man apparently understood that everything would be like this. The teacher morally told the girl that the poison was not completely removed from the mother's body. For a month, A woman needs to take the Qingxiang Bai Liang pill in order to completely remove it. This red pill was not considered particularly precious. He thought it was even in the family vault. The girl put her mother back to bed. She kept saying that Ye Yao was still weak and needed to recover, so let her lie down and rest. Ye Yan promised to bring medicine to her mother. The woman looked softly and with concern at her no longer so small daughter. She kept some secret that weighed on her mother's heart. The girl left the house and began to remember the location of the pharmacy. If her memory served her correctly, she was in the northern part of the estate. She had to walk for about 10 minutes to get there. Everything seemed simple, but anxiety raged in the girl's heart. Suddenly, the dilapidated gate to the courtyard opened. The silhouette of a man appeared on the dilapidated threshold. A voice familiar from distant memories called the girl. The man quickly crossed the space that separated them and tightly pressed the unexpecting girl. He hugged the confused girl and whispered that it was good that she returned. The man said he was very worried when he heard about her fall from Fire Rock. Ye Yan searched her memory in shock. She understood what kind of guy he was. She was completely unmoved by the man's words, as well as by his gentle embrace. This guy was a young genius from a side branch of the Yi clan, Ye Qingyun. He always protected the girl, as if he were her older brother. Ye Qingyun awkwardly let go of the girl, raising his hands in an apologetic gesture. He said he was too excited. The girl looked at him questioningly. He rubbed his palm over his reddened cheek and apologized for going beyond the bounds of decency. The man was very embarrassed for his impulse to hug. Ye Yan realized this and sweetly told the man that everything was fine. After all, Brother Qin Yun was just worried about her. She smiled affectionately and assured her friend that she knew that Brother Qin Yun had always treated Yang like a sister. Ye Yang said without any bad thoughts that Brother Qin Yun had nothing to worry about anymore. After all, from now on, Ye Yang will be independent and stand up for herself. But the man did not understand the girl's words correctly. They hurt him greatly. He lowered his eyes sadly, not daring to look at the girl anymore. Qin Yun asked the girl upset what she meant. The man said in a shrunken voice that he had always protected her well, and she said that because this time he couldn't. He soulfully asked the girl if she was angry. This greatly surprised the girl. Ye Yan waved her palms negatively, and with all her appearance made it clear that she should not be angry under any circumstances. The girl tensely began to convince her brother Qin Yun that she was not angry, and that she could really protect herself. She noted that survival of the fittest. This has always been the rule of nature, and it cannot allow others to protect itself forever. Ye Yan slyly remarked to herself that she had already obtained the 4th level Kui power, but until she forced the teacher to teach her several martial arts techniques, she should not reveal herself. The girl thought that after defeating Yi Linglong, protecting herself would not be a problem. But the man did not know about the girl's thoughts and blamed himself. He said that it was all his fault because he could not protect her, so he made the girl think that way. Qin Yun thought upset that this must all be because he is too useless. That's why Yang thought that she could only rely on herself. The young man clenched his fists tightly and resolutely told his friend that she should rest and be sure that this time he could protect her. Now anyone who wants to harm her will have to go through his corpse. The man's words surprised the girl. After his tirade, he turned sharply and left the estate without saying goodbye. Ye Yan looked after him, scratching the back of her head in confusion. She could not unravel the man's thoughts and understand what had happened to him. The girl had a flash of thought that alarmed her. Perhaps she had said something wrong to her friend, but she decided not to dwell on it. There were much more important problems right now. Meanwhile, near the medicinal storage facility, Ye Linglong was persuading the manager of the medicinal storage facility. It was clear from the girl's face that nothing good should be expected from her. She listened carefully to the pharmacy manager, who, with a conspiratorial air, assured her that Miss Ye Yang often came there to buy medicine for her mother, and catching her here was a brilliant idea. The man thought that the vault was located a long way from the residence, so even if Linlong beat his sister unconscious, the head would not be able to find out who the instigator was. The girl smiled insidiously. Cruelty flashed in her eyes, and she said that the manager should not talk about this. Linlin already understood everything. Ye Yang walked up to the medicine storage room and tensely recognized the people standing at the entrance as her sister Ye Linglong. The manager sprayed himself ingratiatingly in front of the girl while she smiled slyly at him. Ye Yan was aware that it looked like her cousin was up to something. and this was definitely something bad for the girl. She thought that with this turn of events, getting the necessary pills would be quite problematic. Ye Linglong noticed her beloved sister Ye Yang. The insidious girl was surrounded by her faithful maids. Ye Linglong slyly asked if Ye Yang had come to the medicine storehouse to get medicine for her mother. She said sarcastically that her sister was a wonderful daughter. Then the girl said gloomily that she was in a great mood today. So if Ye Yang wanted to get the pills from the medicinal storage, then she just had to kneel down and allow herself to be whipped. It was not for nothing that these girls became Linlong's maids. There was enough viciousness in their hearts. One said that her lady was very strong, and Ye Yang should obediently bend her knees so that she would only be made disabled. The second giggled disgustingly and added that otherwise Ye Yang would be beaten to death. Ye Yan chuckled loudly and demonstratively. The girl asked her sister if she usually pretends to be a kind older sister and what happened then today. She added mockingly that perhaps Linlong had been faking it all along. The confidence of the girl who used to be quiet and meek surprised Ye Linglong. She looked intensely at her sister, hovering for a moment. Afterwards, the girl began to curse at Ye Yang. She shouted angrily that Ye Yang was just trash, and why did she wise up so suddenly? Linlong hysterically asked why Yang returned from the fire forest and forced her grandfather to punish her 3 times. Linlin's angry hysteria could no longer be stopped. The girl lost control of herself. She shouted that if she didn't beat Ye Yang to a pulp today, she would no longer be Ye Linglong. Ye Yan calmly listened to the screams of her older sister, and mentally figured out how she could get into the vault with the slightest damage to herself. Linlin looked at her red whip. Thoughtfully, she said that she should thank Ye Yang. After all, she made Linlong's heart overflow with hatred. The girl wanted to use this opportunity to advance to the 6th level of martial arts. She giggled stupidly. Linlong said mockingly that it was no surprise that she was the one called the genius of the Yi family. The 2 maids immediately nodded in confirmation. Ye Yan decided not to remain silent any longer and respond to her sister's monologue. The girl shouted that at this rate, Linlong would not be able to reach the 6th level. Ye Yang added that how then can Linlong be called a genius? The girl's words wiped the smug smile off her older sister's face. The feigned amusement disappeared, and Linlong exploded with hatred again. She angrily called Ye Yang weak trash that she couldn't even practice martial arts. The girl shouted that Ye Yang was looking for death if she dared to speak to her so impudently. The red whip filled with Linlin's energy. Thanks to this, Ye Yang clearly saw how powerful her rival was, but she was just 1 level lower now, so it was possible that she could handle it. The whip flew towards the girl. Now she could only dodge so as not to take damage. Ye Yang summoned energy and activated her fast pace. The force of the whip caused great destruction to the courtyard where Ye Yang stood. The cement became cracked and there was a dent. Sprays of fire were at the epicenter of the impact. The manager of the medicinal storage facility froze in shock as he looked at what Linlong did. Linlong apparently also did not expect such a strong blow and its consequences from herself. The manager, trembling and sweating with fear, noted that he thought that the first miss only wanted to make Ye Yang disabled. But he was not sure that the girl could be killed. After all, if the old master finds out about this. Linlong apparently also realized what her grandfather would do to her. She said in a trembling voice that she simply lost her temper and could not control her power. In her opinion, this garbage was better off dead. But Linlong didn't seem as confident as before. The maids, who quickly recovered from the shock, began to assent to the mistress. One said that the trash had no strength and Linlong's whip had a 1,000-kilogram punch, so she was definitely dead. Another maid noted that it was a great honor for trash to die from the mistress's whip. Linlong liked these words and said that the genius powers of the Yi family are now at the 6th level. Linlong put on a confident and important look. The girl said that Ye Yang was just a second-rate problem, and if she kills her, what will happen? Even if the grandfather is biased, he still will not be able to go against the rules of the family. The first miss of the Ye family ordered her 2 maids to go to the epicenter of the strike and deal with Ye Yang's body. The maids obediently began to carry out the will of their mistress, who remained standing with the manager near the doors of the vault. One maid thought that she would need to hide for a few days until this matter was resolved. The manager of the medicine store suddenly heard the girl's voice behind him, and out of the corner of his eye noticed the bottle she was holding out. Ye Yan stood behind him and innocently held out 2 bottles of elixirs, one made of blue glass and the other of white glass. She wanted to ask the man which bottle contained the aromatic white lotus. The manager turned around and automatically pointed to the white jar to the girl. He asked why she needed the aromatic white lotus, and only after that he realized who was standing in front of him. Meanwhile, the girl was busily hiding the bottle in the inner pocket of her robe. The man stared at her in shock and slowly digested the information. But then the manager seemed to be turned on. He plopped his butt down on the floor in fear and began pointing his fingers at the girl. The man shouted that there was a ghost in front of him and that she should not dare approach him. All those present stared in horror at the miraculously revived girl. Because of fear, the blood drained from their faces, turning them deathly white. The manager rose to his feet, but still pointed his finger in the direction of the girl. Ye Yan's eyes sparkled cheerfully at their reaction and asked everyone what happened. Linlong trembled and tensely asked the girl how she managed to dodge her whip. She turned sharply and looked at the ruined place where there was nothing. Linlong experienced a wide range of feelings. She was scared, perplexed, and shocked. She began to stutter when trying to ask why Ye Yang was alive. Ye Yan enjoyed her condition. She cheerfully waved her finger at herself and asked her sister if she wanted to know why Ye Yang was standing there. Ye Yan assured everyone that she had been there the whole time. Ye Yan walked closer to her sister and mockingly asked why she made such a big dent. She subtly mocked the shocked Linlong. Ye Yan added that Linlong really wanted to plant a tree in the place of the dent. Linlong shouted in horror that Ye Yang had just stood where that dent was. The girl shook the whip in her hands from an overabundance of feelings. Ye Yan pretended to be scared and said with oohs and ahs that she heard that if you get too angry, you can go crazy. She said that apparently this is what just happened to Linlin. This made Linlong angry again. She swung her whip and started shouting that Ye Yang was talking complete nonsense and pretending. But bad luck. The blow again fell on empty space. The whip hit the stonework where a cheerful Ye Yang had stood a second earlier. Linlong was very frightened by what she saw because she thought that she had missed. Ye Yan stood calmly in front of one of Linlong's maids. The girl shouted to her sister to get her attention. Ye Yang played with the confused and angry Linlong. Linlong shouted a curse word. Her long whip again cut the air with a whistle and flew towards Ye Yang. But the person who suffered from the blow was definitely not the one Linlin wanted to hurt. In a second, Ye Yang escaped the blow and the maid received it. The girl fell from pain and began to scream so that the mistress would not beat her. Frightened, Linlong looked at her maid, who was writhing on the ground in pain. The girl did not understand why this happened. Ye Yang instantly appeared in front of Linlong, which made the latter even more afraid. Ye Yan pretended to scold her sister for beating her maids. The girl carefully noted that apparently her sister really had problems with her head. She said that this was very serious because the older sister was becoming hysterical. Linlin turned white at what she heard. She did not consider herself hysterical, and hearing such things from Ye Yang's trash was even worse and more shameful for her. Ye Yan soulfully told her sister that she heard that if a person is at the peak of his emotions, he can break through to a new level of martial arts. The girl asked how Linlong was feeling. Linlong tensely covered her face with her hands. Frightening thoughts began to visit her. The girl thought maybe, in fact, she was starting to go a little crazy. She didn't understand why Ye Yang was disappearing in front of her, and whether it was possible that her 6th level was an illusion. Ye Yan noticed that she managed to achieve the desired effect. The girl was able to confuse her rival, so she called her teacher. When the elderly teacher appeared in front of the girl, she asked if she could now use the sky-consuming skill. The old man nodded seriously and said that this skill was designed to absorb the earth and sky. This way, his disciple will be able to strengthen her spiritual power. But this skill is created for self-improvement, not for combat. The girl began to tearfully ask her teacher to teach her combat skills. She begged to be allowed to smash Ye Linlong into pieces. The teacher only answered that he had the skills to improve combat, but so far the girl was too weak to learn such skills without harm to herself. Ye Yan did not fully understand what the old teacher was talking about, so the girl asked again what kind of possible harm she could cause to herself. The old man said that she must practice skills to improve her body. Only then will she be able to use fighting techniques. But in order to cultivate the skills to improve her body, she needs to absorb the essences of heaven and earth. This is exactly what the girl did not yet know how to do. Ye Yan thoughtfully said that apparently she would have to find rare skills in cultivating her body. But the maids prevented Ye Yang from further deception and introduction. They began to assure their mistress that they saw Ye Yang teleport. These words brought Linlin out of her reverie. Only she was tense and scared, but now she was beginning to seethe with anger. Linlong called her little sister loudly and angrily. She hurled curses at Ye Yan and asked how dare she deceive her. The first miss of the Ye family jumped up, and waving a whip with red energy flowing through it, ran towards Ye Yang. She screamed that she didn't care what tricks the girl used. Linlong screamed, blinded by hatred, that she just wanted to see if Ye Yang could survive the blows she was preparing for her. It was a deadly web, a Shuan rank skill. Ye Yan looked intensely at the red energy that was weaving in the air like a net. The girl remembered that this combat skill has a wide area of effect. She won't be able to use teleportation. The teacher ordered her to leave, otherwise she might die. The young girl was thinking hard. She couldn't use the Xianlin step, and consuming the sky was not a combat skill. She was deciding what she needed to use when faced with such a strong attack. The girl made a decision that was known only to her. She jumped to fly higher. Ye Yang summoned her energy, hoping that her plan would work. The teacher burst into hysterical tears and shouted that he had a stupid student. After all, even if she cannot avoid the attack, she does not need to face it. Ye Linglong was pleased to note that such useless trash without spiritual power was apparently looking for his death. Ye Yang seriously and tensely summoned the previously absorbed energy. Blue lightning streamed down one of her hands and fiery lava down the other. At this moment, the girl looked beautiful, like a real warrior on the battlefield. The girl made complex passes with her hands, performing a spell known only to her. This spell exploded and destroyed Linlong's deadly web spell. Linlong stared in shock at the remnants of her powerful skill that the previously incompetent Ye Yang had dissolved. This couldn't happen. It was simply unthinkable. Ye Yan tensely sank to the ground, falling to one knee. She was breathing heavily, and there were bruises on her face. Reflecting such a blow was not easy for the young girl. The red energy spell dissipated before the eyes of everyone present. Ye Linglong asked her sister in shock how she did it. Such skills of the younger sister angered the girl, and she went on the attack again. She shouted that Ye Yang was just trash without vital energy. How could she repel her attack? After all, Ye Linglong was at the 6th level of cultivation. The old teacher hovered shyly next to his student. The man asked in a hoarse voice how the girl did it. Ye Yan chuckled contentedly, despite her weakness. The girl said that her vine first collected the essences of magma, and then the energy of lightning at the top of the cliff. The brave girl noticed that although these two energies are weak individually, if they are combined correctly, they will create a powerful explosion. Ye Yan wiped the blood from her lip and noted that it was enough to repel the attack of a 6th-level attack. She happily asked her teacher if it was true that she had acted wisely. The girl glowed with joy and showed the class gesture with her right hand. The old teacher was frightened and began to curse at the student. He called her an idiot because she is still too weak, and this power is very dangerous. He asked if she knew that she could have exploded herself if she had been careless. But Ye Yang was not at all upset by such remarks. The girl noticed that it was an emergency. She, as a brilliant director, was able to find the only true way out of a situation that was fatal for her. Ye Yang happily remarked to the teacher that if she had not taken advantage of this, she would have been torn into small pieces. At the same time, the girl called her teacher a stinking old man. The man scratched his gray beard and agreed with the girl. He praised her that she was really smart for thinking of using this method. In addition, the teacher noticed that he had a determined, persistent, and diligent student. But suddenly the man stopped halfway through his speech. It dawned on the evil one that the girl called him a stinking old man, which offended the man and made him angry. Ye Linglong held the handle of the whip tightly. The evil girl shouted that no matter what idiotic method Ye Yang used to dispel her spell. After all, Ye Yang is still trash. The girl cursed and told Ye Yang that he had decided to kill her today. Ye Yan, gathering her strength into a fist, struggled to her feet and straightened up. Exhaling, the girl advised her sister to save her strength. The girl noticed that the first miss of the Yi family was too far away from her. By the time Linlong's attack reaches Ye Ya's place, it will be very far away. Ye Linglong froze at such a daring remark in her direction. She did not have words that could hurt her rival at that moment. Ye Yan continued. The girl asked Ye Linglong to remember that everything she did to her today, including all of Ye Yang's injuries, Ye Yang as a genius director, would return Linlong 100 or even 1,000-fold. Ye Linglong stared at her little sister, her amber eyes widening in shock. The girl tensely noticed that Ye Yang's gaze was terrifying. Linlong was sweating profusely. She thought that Ye Yang was impressive, and how was it possible? Was this brave girl and that old trash really a manifestation of Ye Yang? Ye Linglong cursed in a moment of fright. The girl began to run up to get closer to Ye Yang and strike again. She didn't understand how she could be scared by just the sight of this garbage. The first miss of the Yi family raised her whip and shouted that she would use her whip to tear Ye Yang into small pieces. She was the embodiment of hatred. Ye Yan stood motionless. The girl realized that there was too much distance between them, and she would be able to avoid the impending attack, provided that he uses the Xianglin step. But none of those present could have predicted the following events. Ye Yang stared in shock at the new person in this conflict. A young man suddenly appeared in front of Ye Yang's figure. He moved with quick, blurry movements. Ye Yan definitely didn't expect to see him there. Ye Linglong recognized the man's figure as Qing Yun's brother, but it was too late. She quickly regretted that she could not stop the whip because she was in love with the young man. Qing Yun covered Ye Yang with his big back and the whip flew towards him. From a strong blow to the back, the guy spread his arms. A bloodstain appeared along his entire back on his light clothes. Ye Qing Yun quietly made a sound of pain. The man's face was distorted by what he had to endure. Ye Linglong froze, looking in pain at the man she loved who had just taken her heavy blow. She only repeated his name and could not find an excuse. Ye Qing Yun wiped away the blood on his lip with his palm. He anxiously asked if Ye Yang was okay. The man apologized for being late, almost offending her. After his words, the man coughed loudly. With a cough, blood sprayed out of his mouth. Ye Linglong looked at this in shock. The girl decided to ask Qing Yun why he took the blow with the whip. How could he really do this for the sake of protecting Ye Yang's trash? Ye Yan looked at her protector with concern. She was truly sorry. Ye Linglong's thoughts developed further. She realized in horror that this blow could affect Ye Qing Yun's cultivation. The girl immediately asked him about it. This question made Ye Qing Yun very angry. He turned around abruptly and angrily reproached Linlong for knowing that Ye Yan was unable to cultivate, but still causing her unbearable pain. He disappointedly asked Ye Linglong what Ye Yan had done wrong to her that she didn't want to let the girl go. This question unpleasantly surprised Ye Linglong and caused her to flare up with hatred. Ye Linglong said that she simply couldn't stand this rubbish. The girl lowered her head and defiantly asked why grandfather loves Ye Yang, and why Qing Yun needs to take care of her. After all, Ye Linglong believed, like many in their world, that Ye Yang was just trash. She did not look into the eyes of her interlocutor, but only asked the question why. When the girl looked up, they were frightening. So much hatred, anger, and desire for blood splashed in the previously beautiful eyes. She shouted at Qing Yun that Ye Yang was just trash without cultivation. How dare she? Such an outburst from the previously always sweet girl unpleasantly surprised Ye Qing Yun. The man looked with alarm at the girl, who now looked and behaved like a hysteric. He had no words to answer her. The young man narrowed his azure eyes angrily. He lowered his head and told the girl that he was disappointed in her. Qing Yun turned away from his interlocutor and added that he did not expect that he had such a sister. These words were a slap in the face for Linlong. The man walked up to the shocked Ye Yang and took her small hand. He pulled the unresisting girl by the hand and gently told her to follow him. The girl looked up at the wounded man with alarm. She tried to look into his eyes, but it didn't work. She attracted Qing Yun's attention with a question about his condition. He looked tenderly at the worried girl and assured her that she was fine. The man's features relaxed as he looked at the girl. He felt uneasy about what he had seen a few minutes ago. Qing Yun squeezed the girl's hand tighter and took her away from there. They looked harmonious, two figures that walked into the distance. One was a neat little girl who reached up to her companion's shoulder. The second was a tall, strong man who confidently led his companion in by the hand. Ye Linglong looked after them and was angry at such harmony of the couple. The only thing that made her angrier was that Qing Yun called her sister. Her face twisted with an angry grin. Linlong whispered insidiously that she never thought of being Qing Yun's sister because he belongs to her. Only for her. Her eyes sparkled with hatred. She decided that regarding Ye Yang, brother Qing Yun could only protect her for a while, but not for her whole life. The girl burst into a terrible laugh which sent shivers down the spines of those present there. She resembled a cruel fairy tale villain. The man walked the girl to the gate of her house to be sure that everything would be okay with her, and that Linlong would not immediately come to take revenge on her. They were silent the whole way. Young people stood in front of the entrance opposite each other. The girl tried to take the man into Yao's garden. She saw that her protector's wound looked bad and sincerely wanted to take care of him. But the man was adamant. He gravely assured the frightened girl that the wound on his back was nothing. Qingyun said that he should train more to protect the girl. He needs to become stronger. After such a fiery speech, the man turned around and was about to leave without saying goodbye. The girl called Qingyun and shouted to him that she appreciated that the man was trying to protect her, but if she always relied on him, she would never become stronger. Ye Yang firmly assured the leaving man that she could protect herself and asked him to trust her. These words hurt the man greatly, even though the girl tried to calm him down. The words hurt him, causing him to smile wryly. The man wanted to protect this weak girl. The girl went to the city, to the building of the mercenary guild. On the street where the building was located, there was chaos with a stream of people scurrying back and forth. It was the busiest street, and there was constant chatter. The old teacher asked his dear student if she was really going to carry out tasks to destroy monsters and obtain valuable products in the mercenary guild. The girl solemnly and with iron confidence answered her teacher's question in the affirmative. She walked towards the mercenary guild, and the teacher hovered in the air at her shoulder. The girl transformed herself, exchanging her long, luxurious robe for a shorter, more practical one. In addition, the girl importantly noted that she needed to defeat Ye Linglong, and for this she needed to master combat skills. She pulled her long pink hair back into a high ponytail with a blue clip. Also, the girl had to cultivate the skills to improve her body, and for this she would need the treasures of nature. The girl slyly noticed that the mercenary guild often gives tasks that ask them to find natural treasures. Her plan was to take on such a task, and then Ye Yang would be able to exchange 1/2 of the treasures found for gold coins. The girl already imagined the weight of gold in her hands. She wanted to keep the other half of the world's natural treasures for herself so that she could successfully cultivate them. Ye Yan was damn pleased with herself. After all, the tasks will help her both earn money and become much stronger, and she came up with all this on her own. The teacher nodded importantly, agreeing with the girl's words. She continued that as a former CEO, the girl believed she had good business acumen. The teacher began to swear at his student because she again called him an old man. He noted offendedly that Ye Yang apparently did not want him to teach her cultivation techniques. The evil one assured that now he would not teach the girl body cultivation techniques. Ye Yan immediately realized that she shouldn't have blurted out too much about the teacher. She began to tearfully ask him for forgiveness, since it was all her fault. But the girl noticed that the teacher did not listen to her. The older man turned away and muttered quietly at his impudent student. The mercenary guild building was also noisy due to the chatter of the people present there, and the tramp of mercenaries coming and going. Ye Yan walked up to the counter where there was a young girl. The second miss of the Yi family told the girl that she would like to take on a mission in the mercenary guild. Ye Yan openly asked the girl what she needed to do for this. The girl, for her perseverance, looked at Ye Yang enthusiastically. Her heart beat very quickly because it was the first time she had seen such a cool female mercenary. The girl's embarrassment was not clear to Ye Yang. The girl greeted Ye Yang awkwardly. Her excitement showed her sympathy and admiration for the young heiress of the Ye family. She said that Ye Yang could look at the mercenary guild data on the crystal screen and pointed her hand up. The young girl also had to fill out a form that was handed to her and select a mission. Ye Yang accepted the form with determination and began to read it. The teacher peered with interest at the form over the girl's shoulder. The girl behind the counter began to explain that the guild uses a rank system that is common throughout the country. She also said that tasks are usually divided into SS, SA, B, C, and D. And of course, the reward depended directly on the complexity of the task the mercenary was performing. The girl sweetly asked Ye Yan to choose a task that suits her. The girl's old teacher quickly soared up on his fluffy cloud. He scratched his beard with his small palm and looked at the task board. Ye Yang asked her teacher what natural treasures were needed to cultivate the body. The teacher thoughtfully replied that for the intermediate level task, you need to collect 1 copper fruit from the Yanhui forest, which can be exchanged for 2 gold coins. According to him, this copper fruit is used to begin cultivating a divine technique called yellow armor. He looked further at the proposed task options. Level D. It was necessary to collect thistles in the Yanhui forest, which can be exchanged for 5 gold coins per piece. The teacher said that thistle can also be used to cultivate a skill of the same level. The technique is called tree bark. Next was a level C mission. It was necessary to collect the insides of a sand-red snake in the Yanhui forest. One was exchanged for 10 gold coins. This ingredient helps cultivate the red scale technique. The girl stared up at her teacher in horror. She began to have certain thoughts that she did not like. Based on such scary names, she concluded that these body enhancement techniques would also change her skin color. This prospect made wrinkles of tension appear on her forehead. The teacher joyfully and delightedly noted that she was, of course, right. He apparently was really attracted to such ideas, unlike Ye Yang. He said that yellow armor would make the girl's skin yellow. Also, the skin will become rough and durable, so no one can hurt it. The girl fearfully imagined herself completely yellow. She remained silent in response to the enthusiastic speeches of her teacher, and he did not even notice it. The man was in his element. He liked to finally be able to share his knowledge. He told the girl that tree bark was even better than the previous technique. After all, if a girl begins to cultivate this technique, her skin will become wood. Yayan imagined herself with skin like wood, and this seemed to upset the girl even more. Her skin will then become thick and almost impenetrable. According to the teacher, even a needle cannot penetrate it. The man was already glowing with delight because of the techniques. The red scale technique was his favorite. If a girl starts practicing this technique, her skin will only become red and covered with scales. It will completely become like a snake, and the scales will begin to secrete a sticky substance. Yeyan sighed heavily at such prospects. The crafty one enthusiastically flew up to the girl and asked if his darling was not delighted with such techniques. He said that unfortunately, the girl's body is still weak and will only be able to cultivate one of the proposed skills. The girl seemed speechless from the teacher's such regret, but the elderly man happily suggested choosing the red scales technique because the girl would like it. But it was clear from the young girl's face that she did not like any of the 3 techniques, but the elderly man did not notice this. He happily showed the girl the class hand gesture. The girl was already mentally wiping away with a handkerchief the sweat that appeared on her face due to tension. She had some thoughts about this. She directly said that the teacher apparently did not have a wife. The evil one indignantly asked how she understood this. The teacher began to say that, remembering the old days when he went around the whole world, he still could not say for sure why he did not have close relationships with women. For a long time, he was confused. The girl held back a knowing smile, because she understood why he didn't have a relationship. She asked the teacher if there was a body enhancement technique that would not have side effects on the girl's appearance. The teacher thought about it and said that body enhancement techniques are basic skills for strengthening the skin. Therefore, one cannot do without side effects. Out of all of these, there is a low-level body enhancement technique, the ice skin technique, which has the least impact on appearance. Ye Yang immediately asked the teacher what effect she would get from her. This is a mystical level technique, an intermediate stage. It will instantly increase the resistance of the girl's body. After learning this technique, Ye Yang's skin will look much more beautiful, brighter and softer. The girl was already dreaming about it enthusiastically, but the teacher was upset and said that it did not look as powerful and dominant as other techniques. He didn't think his student would like it. The girl was stunned by such conclusions. Her wise martial arts teacher did not understand women at all, and this frightened Ye Yang. Ye Yang confidently told the evil one that this is exactly what is needed, and she will cultivate this technique. These words made the old man think deeply, because in order to cultivate this technique, the girl would need a 1,000-year-old snow mist bamboo. The problem was that next to this bamboo there was sure to be an ice crystal spider demon sitting next to it, and this demon creature is from the predestined kingdom. This meant only one thing. With the girl's current abilities, she would first have to reach level 10 in the body-tempering realm before she could fight this spider. After all, if the girl goes now, it will be no better for the spider demon than a delicious dessert for dinner. The teacher drew the girl's attention to the table with tasks. The mission to collect the leaves of this 1,000-year-old snow bamboo was level A. He morally remarked that such a newcomer as a girl was not capable of such a difficult mission. The girl did not like the teacher's remark. But Ye Yang quickly switched to other thoughts. The girl realized that for just one leaf of such bamboo she could get 2,000 gold. She would receive hundreds of gold for just a piece of leaf. The girl could not believe it. She was already surrounded in her thoughts by mountains of gold coins. If for one piece of paper she could get 2,000 gold pieces, then for 100 pieces of paper she could get 200,000 coins. With this money, she could change Yao's entire garden. The teacher noticed that Ye Yang was not listening to him. He tried to attract the student's attention back and convince her that she was not capable of this mission right now. The girl smiled insidiously when she heard that she couldn't do something. She turned around and the girl's eyes sparkled with excitement. Ye Yang confidently told the teacher that there is no money in this world that she cannot get. The teacher looked at the girl in surprise. He doubted that this was his student. Impossible. He wondered how the girl could create such a frightening aura. The evil one knew her capabilities very well, but he had a strong feeling that she was capable of completing this mission. The master put his hands on his hips and, as a senior, noted that there was no point in empty chatter, because the girl's opponent was of a demonic level. Just one blow from him was enough to crush Ye Yang into a cake. The girl was not afraid of such possibilities. She confidently told the old man that her fast pace had already reached the intermediate stage. For ordinary people, to achieve them one must reach the predestined kingdom. The old man thought about the girl's words. He confirmed her words and added that teleportation skills require a high level. Sometimes even masters at the intermediate stage cannot always use fast walking as they should. After all, physically there are quite a large number of people who have passed through the predestined realm and reached the realm of spiritual struggle, but even so, they are still unable to overcome even short distances using teleportation. The girl noticed that the teacher said everything correctly, and she added that her fast pace and ability to evade are much stronger than those who are already at the highest level. Besides, she had no intention of fighting the spider demon head-on. She planned that if something went wrong, she would quickly run away from there. Ye Yan firmly believed that all she had to do was distract the spider. Then she would have the opportunity to collect the flow of misty bamboo. The girl's next words deeply touched something inside the old man. She said that the level her teacher failed to reach was simply part of his ability, not all of it. The old man was deep in thought. He ruled this world, but even so he lacks the foresight of his quick-witted student. The evil one admitted that he was obsessed with the idea of achieving the highest level of skill. That was the whole problem. Ye Yang, after finishing her conversation with the teacher, walked to the reception desk. She apologized and pointed the girl to the board, showing with her finger which mission she wanted to take. The girl behind the counter was mentally surprised because this mission was A grade. In her opinion, Ye Yang looked no older than 14 years old, and she was also too cute and wonderful. The girl did not understand how such a young mercenary was already taking on such a difficult mission, without having the level of a predetermined kingdom. Ye Yan noticed the girl's confusion and mischievously asked if everything was okay. She asked if she couldn't take on this mission. The girl was confused and began to rummage around. She assured Madame that this was not the case. The girl handed the form to Ye Yan so that she could fill it out, and after that, the mission would be assigned to her. Ye Yan quickly filled out the form with a light hand. She told the girl to remember her name, because she would come in too with perfect results. She asked the girl to wait for her, calling her my lady. The girl behind the counter was speechless after she was called milady, and apparently the gift of thinking coherently. This is the first time someone called her that. The girl didn't understand why she had a strange feeling when Ye Yang called her that. She put her hand to her chest. The girl at the front desk enthusiastically took Ye Yang's form and read the girl's name. She thought it was very wonderful, but for some reason it seemed strangely familiar. Ye Yan was already walking down the long corridor of the Mercenary Guild building. She met many people on her way. The girl enthusiastically noted that she did not expect that there would be maids in this world. Moreover, this maid was so cute when she blushed. But her cheerful and carefree mood was destined to change dramatically. The girl stopped abruptly and chuckled questioningly. Among the people, an eerily familiar figure was climbing up the stairs to the reception desk. Ye Yan definitely didn't expect to meet this girl here. However, Ye Linglong also did not expect to meet her younger cousin, who did not have spiritual powers in the Mercenary Guild. And the girl was unable to hide her surprise. Ye Yan was in a more advantageous position, because she stood at the top of the stairs and looked down at the offender. She noticed that she had come to the Mercenary Alliance to complete a mission, or there was some kind of problem for Linlong. Ye Yan couldn't leave her sister without a witty remark. The girl noticed that little sister Linlong said in public that her sister was trash, because they were in the thick of people. Ye Yang added to this the question of whether Linlong is trying to show off the family's level of education in this way. Ye Yang's insolence made Linlong stunned. The crowd of people behind Linlong began whispering and pointing fingers at her. They were already busy discussing the gossip they knew about the Yi family. Linlong tensely went all in, saying that Ye Yang couldn't practice martial arts, and that was a fact. She pointed a finger at the girl and said that she could not have permission to carry out missions. Ye Yan mockingly replied that she had already taken the mission, and if there is no problem, then she would like little sister Linlong to get out of her way. Ye Linglong asked angrily how Ye Yang dared to take the mission, but she must have been talking about low-grade D-level missions. Linlong asked if Ye Yang was willing to risk his life to earn 1 or 2 gold coins. She mockingly remarked how poor her little sister was. Linlong did not forget to boast that she was already at the 6th level in body purification. So with such strength, she takes on a mission that requires Linlong to go to the Black Snake Pond to kill the iron-toothed rat. This mission was Class C, and the girl could get 50 gold coins for just 1 rat tooth. People whispered in disbelief that Linlong was indeed already at the 6th level of body refining at such a young age. No wonder she became the prodigy of the Yi family. They said in horror that Linlong was carrying out a full-fledged C-level mission. The men noticed that for people undergoing body enhancement, the C-level mission is extremely dangerous. This not only required the 6th level of body purification, but also the person must be experienced. Ye Yan chuckled knowingly and asked her cousin if it was true that she was trying to show how high her mission was. The ostentatious gaiety disappeared from Ye Yan's face, and she invited Linlong to make a bet. Ye Linglong froze in shock at her younger sister's proposal. She really sincerely did not understand why she was making this bet. Ye Yang said that Linlong's mission is to go to the Black Snake Pond and her to the Yuanhui Forest. Although they are in different directions, both journeys take each of them about a month. The girl suggested seeing who could earn more this month, and whoever loses will have to kneel down and hit himself 100 times. Ye Yang asked how Ye Linglong viewed such an idea. Linlong smiled contentedly. She asked Ye Yang if she really thought that Linlong didn't know what she was thinking. She said that her sister realized that the C-level mission was extremely dangerous, so Yang was pushing her to kill another iron-toothed rat. After all, according to Linlong, Ye Yan hoped that her sister would die during the mission to the Black Snake Pond, but Linlong shouted smugly that Ye Yang was thinking too much and we'll see who wins. Linlong added that in a month, Ye Yang will only have 2 or 3 coins in her hands, but she has many hundreds of gold coins and will scatter them in front of the girl. The people present there began to whisper in shock that Ye Yang was a very reckless piece of trash. Linlong accepted her cousin's bet and said that in a month she would invite everyone present to the mercenary guild again to be witnesses. People started making noise. They started placing bets, and most of them bet on Linlong, which made her very happy. People were making noise that it was very interesting. Some were convinced that Linlong would win since she was at the 6th level of body refinement. Ye Yan looked at everyone with confidence and resolutely said that they would see each other in a month. It was again that look that once frightened Linlin and recently the teacher. A pair of bluebirds chirped beautifully while sitting on a tree branch. The day was incredibly sunny and pleasant. The young man, Xuanji Liu, smiled contentedly at his thoughts while sitting on the terrace at a wooden table. He was carefully drawing something on the canvas with a long brush. On the canvas, the man beautifully painted the second Miss of the Ye family. He saw that she was the same Miss Biao from the Ye family. The portrait amazed with its realistic writing and splendor. The man admired the girl's portrait and didn't understand how everyone could consider Ye Yang to be trash. He depicted every feature of the girl's face with warmth in his eyes. Xuanji Liu noticed that this little girl was much more interesting than he thought when he first met. Suddenly, the process of admiring the girl was interrupted. The man suddenly developed internal anxiety, and he got used to trusting his feelings. He quickly rose from his chair and walked to the edge of the terrace, from where dense forests and high, impenetrable mountains could be seen. Something inside, known only to him, attracted the man in the Yuanhui Forest. Yuanhui Forest was wild and alien to people. Many random travelers and mercenaries gave him their precious lives. Tall and dense trees made it difficult to pass, and various creatures with demonic blood were waiting behind every bush. A pack of wolves with demonic red eyes stood under a tree and guarded their prey, which was sitting on a high branch. Their victim was Ye Yang. She looked tired and was a little bruised. She had to admit with great annoyance to her teacher that the forest was truly dangerous. The wolves looked with bloodthirsty hope at the figure of the girl in the tree. Ye Yan indignantly noted that they had entered the forest 5 days ago and had already been attacked by countless demons. The old teacher burned with righteous anger because he warned his disobedient student. The girl entered the inner zone of the forest, where people who have reached at least the predestined realm usually end up. Of course, the animals would be waiting for her to pounce. The evil one indignantly noted with a great deal of concern that if the girl had not been so fast, she would have already died. But the girl no longer listened to her teacher. Something below attracted her attention. The noticed detail made the girl chuckle loudly and warily. Something really strange was happening to the wolves. The old teacher noticed that the girl was not listening to him and followed her gaze. The behavior of the wolves made him wary. They looked as if a formidable enemy was approaching them. The ancient vine on the girl's hand began to actively shine with an emerald color. She warily asked her teacher what was happening to the vine, because he was its previous owner and should, in theory, know. This question visibly confused the old man. He muttered that when he first obtained the vine and the sky absorption technique from the ancient ruins, an unknown person ambushed him before he could cultivate. And he died as a result of the attack. All the old man managed to do was tie his soul to the ancient vine. The new information shocked the girl, because she thought that the man was well versed in the power of the vine. The girl screamed in panic that she felt the ancient vine becoming restless, and as if it had found its prey. The ground of the forest emitted a long-drawn roar, as if it had begun to move. The wolves trembled at what was happening, as if they were mortally frightened by something. Purple-pointed crystals began to emerge from the ground. The demonic wolves whined terribly and loudly. One of these crystals suddenly grew sharply under one of the wolves of the pack, piercing right through his body. The teacher and Ye Yang looked at this in horror. The teacher shouted that it was bad because this was a rare land demon beast. Crystals appeared one after another under the wolves and pierced their bodies, killing them. The evil one told the girl that every thorn she saw was one of those crystal-type ground demon beasts. The old teacher was horrified. He shouted to the girl in a panic that each of the thorns had reached the 8th level of the body-quenching realm. The worst thing about them was that they attacked from the ground, and it was almost impossible to defend with their attacks. The girl said in alarm that if these were ground thorns while she continued to hide in the tree, then in theory they would not be able to attack her. But the teacher flew closer to her in a panic and informed her that the ground crystal demon's spikes were territorial in nature, so they would not move. Previously, they were attacked by a pack of wolves and accidentally entered the territory of the thorn demons. Now that they have woken up, they will definitely be hunting for the girl, and she can't just hide in a tree. After all, as soon as Ye Yang's feet were on the ground, the thorns would definitely attack. In addition, the teacher dejectedly noted that the girl's quick steps can only teleport over short distances, and these spikes occupy a fairly large area of the forest. The girl was deep in thought as her old teacher rushed around in a panic in the air. The old man waved his arms in confusion and muttered only one phrase, "What should we do?" But the girl did not give in to her teacher's panic. She preferred to keep a cool head. Ye Yan exhaled heavily and said thoughtfully that her plan might be a little dangerous. The old man, as soon as he heard the girl's words, abruptly stopped in his throwing and flew closer to her. He asked what she came up with. The girl resolutely said that it was worth just trying and not focusing on the consequences. The old teacher happily looked at his dear student and asked what she had come up with. After all, he clearly had no rescue plans. The girl noticed the changing notes in the teacher's voice and mockingly said that there are many ways to escape, and why should they then choose the longest one? She said she had something completely different. The teacher stared at his student in surprise and froze. He asked with a sinking expression what exactly Ye Yang meant, what many ways she was talking about. The girl cheekily winked at her confused old man and said cheerfully that in this situation she had many options for how to cope with it. The evil one's jaw dropped and his eyes widened. He had absolutely no idea what his reckless student could be talking about and was noticeably surprised by her calmness and determination. Ye Yan sat comfortably on a tree branch and began laying out options for a rescue plan. The essence of the first was that she could remove a large layer of bark from this tree, and since it is quite thick, it would be quite possible to cut a piece into a parachute. The girl thus planned to easily cover a long distance and fly calmly over the deadly thorns. The second escape plan was that she could grab several dead wolves with quick steps. The girl's eyes lit up with ideas when she talked about her plans. When the dead wolves were in her hands, she could skin them and make a balloon. She thought that simply by burning a tree branch that she tied to her skin, she could fly away. It seemed that it was impossible to surprise the old teacher anymore, but the creative girl still managed it with ease. The girl reasoned further, completely oblivious to her teacher's reaction. She said that she could make 2 stilts out of wood, although it would indeed be a bit of a hassle. Ye Yang said that no matter how smart she is, she still has to admit that she doesn't know how to walk on stilts and needs practice for at least a few hours. Such luxury was not available to the girl. The teacher exhaled in shock, picked up his jaw and tensely asked the girl that if it was easy for her to come up with an escape plan, then why was she still in a dilemma? The girl looked seriously and defiantly at the glowing vine and said that she was thinking about jumping from the tree. The teacher stared at the girl in horror and shouted, how could she think to jump down? Was she tired of living? After all, there were so many thorns on the ground and they would stab the girl right away, sucking all the life out of her. The old man felt a shiver run down his spine from the girl's deadly idea. The girl thoughtfully touched the ancient vine and said that it was she who brought her soul into this world. He Yang wanted to check why exactly the vine needed her in this body. The girl quickly got to her feet, before the teacher had time to say anything against it, pushed off the branch and flew into free fall. For the old teacher, if his heart had been beating, it would have probably stopped at that moment again. The girl's body was rapidly approaching the large purple spikes. She flew with a whistle into the hands of her death, but suddenly the girl hovered in the air and began to float. Ye Yang began to make complex passes with her hands, calling on streams of energy that held her above the thorns. Something strange began to happen to the crystal demons on Earth. The technique perfected by the girl began to draw life energy from the thorns. They began to collapse and many purple crystals rose into the air. The teacher was already in shock and lost his jaw on the floor. His eyes increased 3 or even 4 times in size and looked at the girl without blinking. He wondered how this was even possible. After all, his young and untrained student masterfully absorbed demonic energy, thereby destroying the crystal demon without knowledge of any martial arts. The girl didn't fight, didn't repel the attack, she just sucked it out. It was simply incredible and terribly beautiful. One person was absorbing so much energy from the thorns. The teacher had the feeling that the vine was trying to defy all known laws of nature. Many crystals were already floating around the girl when in principle all the work was finished. She calmly stepped onto the bare and safe ground. The girl looked contentedly at what she managed to do with the help of the ancient vine. The teacher noticed that Ye Yang managed to increase her skill levels. Ye Yang actually just advanced 1 level. She absorbed the energy of many of these thorns. But she had just managed to reach the 4th level of the body-quenching realm. The teacher thoughtfully pulled his gray beard. The girl gradually came to her senses after the absorption technique. She looked at her hands with delight and shouted that she had managed to increase her level. Ye Yan proudly extended her hand with the vine to the old man, who flew closer to her. The girl said that it was the vine that absorbed all the energy of the demonic thorns. The girl showed off in front of the teacher, who was still impressed by what he saw. Ye Yang noted that it was very good that she could absorb some of the vine's energy in order to increase her level. The teacher was very surprised and definitely confused. He couldn't figure out if the ancient thorns were absorbing energy, then something had truly changed. The girl remembered her feelings when she was on the tree. An ancient vine can be filled with energy, and there seems to be something to it. The energy has the ability to be released as Ye Yang pleases, and she can shape it the way she needed. The teacher waved his hands at the girl in an inviting gesture and asked her to release her energy so that he could finally see it. He was very inspired, since he was not destined to fully experience the capabilities of the vine during his lifetime. The girl rather hesitantly agreed to try. The teacher flew away from her a little to give her space to act. Ye Yang closed her eyes and a purple ball of energy formed around her. The girl's hands created elaborate passes as the green vine began to lengthen and move along the girl's palm to the tips of her fingers. From the movement of the released energy, the fallen leaves that were lying on the ground rose into the air in chaos and began to spin. An indefinite object began to appear in the girl's hands, which consisted of purple crystals. Soon the object began to take on the shape known to everyone. It was a long sword that was formed thanks to energy. The teacher, without breathing, looked at the concentrated girl and the blade that magically appeared in her hands. It was clear that the man was not ready for such incredible capabilities of the vine. When the blade reached a length of about a meter, the girl opened her eyes and stared at it in shock. The weapon was incredibly subtle but promising. The old teacher had reached the greatest peak of wonder that had ever been possible. He couldn't find words to describe the weapon he saw. The girl looked at the blade with admiration. As if showing off her newfound weapon, Ye Yang twirled it in the air in front of her face. She happily said that when she released the energy of the vine, it took the form of a sword, exactly the way the girl wanted it to be. The girl, pleased with herself, told the teacher that it really worked, and she was simply amazing. The teacher may have looked at the girl with some envy, because she was incredibly capable. Ye Yan brought the sword closer to her face and touched the hilt with her fingers. It had a peculiar vine pattern on it. The handle was comfortable for a small girl's hand. She commented that the sword looked cool, and she was really happy about it. Meanwhile, the teacher also carefully examined the weapon. He told the girl that it was an azure demon crystal. According to him, these crystals form deep underground, gathering strong spiritual energy together. It took billions of years for a tiny piece of such a crystal to form. The crafty one thoughtfully said that apparently many such crystals were hidden under the ground on which the girl stood. Because the spiritual energy is too strong, these crystals eventually began to turn into earth spikes,